Chapter 29-31, Clue 2. Once this news was released, everyone in the city was excited. That's great, I'm finally alive. This was definitely good news for them. After a few days of silence, the city of the abandoned ruins became lively again. The arena tournament started again and the rules were changed. This time, Len Ruoxiue and the others did not participate. Everyone entered a short period of adjustment. On this day, the burly man, who had been invited by the city lord's mansion and had not returned for several days, came to the city lord's mansion sneakily and asked to see Uncle Long. The guard invited them in. When he saw the burly man in the living room, he carefully observed the surroundings. Seeing that there was no one from the city lord's mansion watching, he asked in a low voice, "Brother, how did you get caught in the city lord's mansion?" He had only found out about this the day before yesterday, and had hesitated for a long time. In the end, he had mustered up the courage to visit. Before he came, he had also imagined that Uncle Long and the others might have been interrogated by torture. But after seeing Uncle Long and the others today, he suddenly realized that they seemed to be living quite a comfortable life. They were all white and fat. They didn't look like they were being tortured. However, he didn't think it was right to say that they were warmly received by the city lord's mansion. "Who said we were caught? We were invited here." Uncle Long raised his eyebrows. "Ah. Brother. Don't hide it from me, my boss said that the city lord hates you to death, so how could he invite you here? So you have to be careful, the city lord is very narrow-minded, be careful of his revenge." The burly man said with a worried expression. "Thank you for your concern, but he won't have the chance to take revenge." Uncle Long said with a smile. "Why?" Blinking his eyes, the burly man didn't understand. "The city lord you mentioned is already dead." Uncle Long said with a smile. The burly man's expression changed drastically upon hearing this. How was this possible? How did the city lord die? Why didn't they receive the news? No, this can't be true. Brother, don't tease me. I'm not a 3-year-old child. How can I believe this? After a moment of silence, the burly man said. I'm not teasing you. Your previous master is really dead. Otherwise, do you think we could be so carefree in the city lord's mansion? Uncle Long said indifferently. Then who is the current city master? The burly man asked as he swallowed his saliva in shock. It's me. A voice came from outside, but the burly man did not see the person who spoke. Damn it. Where are you looking at? Lower your head. After Azure entered, he impatiently shouted. The burly man was very obedient. He looked down and saw nothing but a rabbit. What did she want him to look at? Idiot. Seeing that the burly man was still at a loss, Tsang said in disdain. He was being scolded. He was actually scolded by a rabbit. The burly man was confused. Since when were the rabbits in the city of abandoned ruins so tough? This didn't make sense. The burly man was secretly worried. At this time, Tsang said, I am the city lord. Thanks, you. These 4 words petrified the burly man. When did this happen? The position of the city lord had actually fallen on the head of a rabbit. Where was the reverent god of the city lord's mansion? Did they all die? Sob. Could it be that they had to listen to this rabbit in the future? After he came back to his senses, he looked at the snow-white rabbit in front of him and felt a little helpless. Go and gather all the major forces. Seeing that the burly man was still in a daze, Azure directly ordered. You want me to gather them? The burly man pointed at himself and said in disbelief. What else? Azure asked. Then what should I say? The burly man's ability to accept things was unusually strong. Although the fact that he had to listen to a rabbit in the future made him very depressed, he felt that it didn't matter who he listened to. Since this rabbit could become the lord of a city, it must have its own extraordinary qualities. He just didn't know where he had passed. However, he believed that as long as he asked his brothers later, he would definitely know. The burly man's thoughts were very beautiful, and there were a few older brothers present, so he was very cooperative with Song's words and put on an appearance of humbly seeking advice. Just say that the city lord has invited you. However, you are not allowed to reveal my identity. Azure said directly. Alright, I got it. The burly man replied. Then, he turned around and left without chatting with Uncle Long and the others. Does Senior Tsang intend to subdue the forces here? Uncle Long asked with a faint smile after the burly man left. I'm not subduing them, I'm meeting them. Azure said with a smile. The various forces here were originally attached to the city lord's mansion. Now that the city lord's mansion had changed hands, they had to be informed. Since the errand boy had come to the door, it would save them the trouble of the city lord's guards passing on the message. Tsang understood the principle of making the best use of everything. Although the burly man looked a little silly, he was reliable. After informing the various forces, he returned to his own force to inform the boss. A few hours later, the representatives of the forces in the City of Desolation who had received the notice arrived one after another. Lu Fan was in charge of receiving them. With a reverent god personally coming forward, the representatives of the various forces were simply a little terrified. This reception standard was really too high. However, Lu Fan remained calm. Most importantly, after the new master had arrived, his hidden desire to see the world in chaos had suddenly emerged. Therefore, he really wanted to see the reactions of the representatives when they saw the new master. They had already predicted what might happen. So, how could he not be there to watch? However, his appearance made the representatives quite nervous. In the past, they were not so nervous when they saw the city lord. However, when they saw Lu Fan, they felt very uneasy. Lu Fan was too low-key in the city lord's mansion and ignored everything. It could be said that among the 4 reverent gods in the city lord's mansion, they had seen Lu Fan the least. Now that they suddenly saw Sir Lu Fan smiling at them, they were really not used to it. Especially the burly man, he already knew that the city lord had changed, and the previous city lord had died. When he first found out about this, he didn't understand why a rabbit had become the city lord. Now, he was even more confused. At that time, he had thought that all the hierarch in the city lord's mansion had died. Now that he had seen the legendary Lu Fan, he felt a deep pain in his ass. Why is Sir Lu Fan still alive, but the city lord is a rabbit? All this time, the rabbit had only been food in everyone's impression. Now, the food had become the city lord, and they had to listen to the food in the future. No matter how they thought about it, this was unbelievable. In a while, when the major forces learned of this news, one could imagine how shocked they were. The burly man simply couldn't imagine that terrifying scene. Woo, the scene would be too beautiful, and he didn't dare to look at it directly. Just as the burly man had expected, when Song Yi appeared, all the representatives were stunned. However, Lu Fan hadn't introduced Song at that time, so the representatives thought that the city lord's mansion was treating them to rabbit meat. Chapter 2932, Clue 3. Immediately, someone with a quick mouth laughed and teased, Sir Lu Fan, does the city lord want to treat us to rabbit meat? How do I eat it? Was it roasted or boiled? Oh. I personally prefer barbecued food. Lu Fan fell silent. He also knew that his master's image would cause people to misunderstand, but what he did not expect was that he was still sitting here, and someone dared to humiliate his master. Did they think he was dead? As for the burly man, he was so scared that his little heart was trembling. Hey! That rabbit wasn't meant to be eaten, it was the new city lord. However, the 2 evil-minded people did not say anything about this. The burly man even silently moved his chair to the door to avoid being caught in the crossfire later. You want to eat me? At this time, Tsang jumped onto the table in front of the person who spoke, and his bright black eyes looked straight at him. Aren't rabbits supposed to be eaten? The man was stunned for a moment before he said matter-of-factly. Obviously, he didn't expect the rabbit in front of him to actually be able to speak. It should be known that rabbits were the lowest level of beasts, and not many could speak. Yes, but in my eyes, you're also for eating. Sung said as he grinned. What did you just say? When the person who spoke heard Sung's words, he slammed the table in anger and stood up, glaring at Sung. Sung was neither angry nor annoyed. He floated in the air and looked at the other person. Then, his small claws smacked the other person's bright big head. In an instant, 5 claw marks appeared on the person's head, and blood instantly flowed out. After being clawed, the man was dumbfounded. Don't you know that trouble comes from the mouth? This is just a small punishment for you. If you dare to eat rabbits again, I'll let the rabbits eat you too. Sung threatened. After that, it turned its gaze to the other people present and said with a faint smile, I'm the new city lord of the City of Desolation. Be good, or you'll regret it. Shocking. It was extremely shocking. Sung's words petrified most of the people. Their eyes were wide open and their mouths were half open, unable to return to their senses for a long time. This is impossible. After a long time, someone shouted and turned to Lu Fan for confirmation. Lu Fan turned his head. His master had told him to speak less. Nothing is impossible. In the future, I'll be in charge here. You guys have to be obedient. Azure said unhappily. He was really bold. There was actually someone who dared to question its words, humph. He could not be forgiven. Azure was furious. You want us to listen to a rabbit? Keep dreaming. The protesters continued to shout, clearly disagreeing with Sung's words. If you don't listen, you will die. Azure said impolitely. When the person who spoke heard this, he actually laughed wildly. A rabbit told him to die if he didn't listen. This was really too interesting. But then, he could no longer laugh. A white light flashed, and the man stopped breathing. The people present didn't even see what the white light was, and he was already dead. Who else wants to die? Report your name. Sung's bright black eyes looked around at everyone present. When everyone was looked at by this gaze, especially when someone had died just now, they were all so scared that they didn't dare to make a sound. Did this rabbit kill someone in front of them? Everyone looked at Sung, their hearts filled with shock. What's wrong? No one signed up. Seeing that no one said anything, Sung asked again. My master is asking you a question. Why aren't you answering? Seeing that they were in a deadlock, Lu Fan interrupted. Master, what does that mean? Lu Fan's words made the representatives of the various forces even more horrified. They had never thought that Lu Fan would say such words. Was he trying to scare them to death? Master, are you referring to that rabbit? The crowd wasn't sure, but when they saw Lu Fan's serious expression, they didn't know what to do. What was going on? You exchanged a rabbit for City Lord Ji. To be honest, if Lu Fan became the City Lord, they could still accept it. But how could they accept a rabbit? As soon as they thought about how they would be led by a rabbit in the future, the people present felt a deep pain in their balls. However, this rabbit's strength seemed to be unfathomable, so for a moment, they didn't know how to deal with it. However, whether it was Tsung or Lu Fan, they had only gathered them to inform them and not to ask for their opinions. Therefore, it didn't matter whether they agreed or not. If they couldn't accept it, they could only die. Thanks, no one present dared to show any signs of disobedience to the message released by the man and beast. After learning that the former city lord was dead, they tactfully expressed their willingness to be loyal to him as before and left with their tails between their legs. After they left, the various factions started to secretly plot against the new city lord's estate. After all, they didn't want to work for a rabbit in the future. The representatives discussed for a long time and finally came up with a perfect plan. One night a week later, they quietly surrounded the city lord's mansion and planned to launch a sneak attack. The representatives had already bribed a few guards of the city lord's mansion, so when they arrived late at night, the gate of the city lord's mansion was opened for them. After sneaking into the city lord's mansion under the cover of the night, they were just about to split up when the courtyard suddenly turned bright as day. The dazzling light almost blinded their dog eyes. All the forces were shocked. What was going on? He had been discovered. Just as they were feeling uneasy, Leng Ruoxue and the rest walked out from a room. When she saw them, Leng Ruoxue smiled faintly and pretended to be confused. What's going on? Are you visiting me in the middle of the night? None of the major factions said a word. They only looked at Leng Ruoxue and her group with a vexed expression. What, are you all mute? Leng Ruoxue asked again, clearly provoking him. Fuck. You're the mute one, your whole family is mute. It was unknown who it was, but someone shouted angrily. Leng Ruoxue squinted her beautiful eyes in displeasure. However, before she could make a move, a ray of white light flew towards the direction of the sound. Following that, a blood-curdling scream was heard as a person fell to the ground. Niu, kill. Bai Guang, also known as Tsang, said as he landed in Leng Ruoxue's arms. Let the guards of the city lord's mansion take action. Well, just be the audience. Leng Ruoxue said calmly. Yes, they are too weak. They should practice. Tsang nodded in agreement and gave Lu Fan a look. Lu Fan understood. In an instant, guards appeared out of nowhere and surrounded the various forces. In terms of numbers, the various forces clearly had the advantage. However, in terms of aura, they could not compare to the guards of the city lord's mansion who had been undergoing devilish training for the past few days. Moreover, the other party had an extremely powerful reverent god-level expert, while the strongest person on the other side was a divine emperor. Such a difference in strength made them, who had planned to launch a surprise attack, feel deeply depressed. More importantly, the other party had disrupted all of their plans and caused them to be in a mess. Then, the two sides started to fight. The guards of the city lord's mansion, who had been tortured for several days, all went to find the people of the major forces like vicious wolves. They vented their grievances that had been suppressed for several days on these people who had come to die. As for the various forces, who had not expected that the city lord's mansion's combat power and aura would increase by a large margin, they were now in a complete tragedy. Not long after, more than half of the people on the various forces' side had fallen, while the other half had also suffered injuries of varying degrees. The final result was a crushing defeat for the allied forces. After they became captives, Leng Ruoxue and the others did not intend to kill them. Instead, they gave them a chance to make a contribution. This opportunity was naturally to find someone. Leng Ruoxue needed them to provide clues. When the various factions heard that they would not have to die if they could provide information on the three phoenixes, they immediately expressed that they would work hard to complete the mission. At the same time, Leng Ruoxue also ordered the city lord to post a reward notice. In an instant, the entire city of abandoned ruins was in action. Half a month later, in the living room of the city lord's mansion, Uncle Long looked at the calm Leng Ruoxue and couldn't help but ask, Shuer, it's been half a month and there's no clue at all. Could they have already left? I don't think so. Leng Ruoxue guessed. Then, will our big actions reach the ears of the Ripple Mist bitch? Uncle Long was a little worried. It's possible. However, I'm not afraid to let her know. Leng Ruoxue said confidently. She didn't think that Ripple would come all the way to the abandoned city just for 3 phoenixes. That woman was so confident that she didn't care about the 3 phoenixes at all. Hearing Shue'er's words, what else could Uncle Long say? Suddenly, Leng Ruoxue stood up and said to the demon, Uncle Long and the rest, Green Vessel said that there's a lead. Hearing this, the few of them were overjoyed and quickly left the city lord's mansion with Shue'er, heading towards the location of the clue. The more they walked, the more they felt that something was amiss. Shue'er, our house is just ahead. Uncle Long was speechless. I know, but Qing Ju said that the aura of the Phoenix clan was leaked not far from where we used to live. Leng Ruoxue replied honestly. All this time, she had asked Qing Ju to pay close attention to the situation in the city of Forsaken Ruins. Before this, Qing-ju's focus was on the city lord's mansion. After knowing that the previous city lord had not caught Feng Miao and the other two, she had asked Qing-ju to expand the scope of his attention. However, she did not know where Feng Miao and the other two were hiding. Qing-ju and Sung had searched for them but could not find any clues. This time, if Qing-ju had not discovered a trace of the Phoenix clan's aura, they would not have found it. However, according to Qing-ju, the aura disappeared as quickly as it came, so he could not determine its exact location. However, there was no doubt that the three old phoenixes were still in the city of forsaken ruins. Just like that, Leng Ruoxue and the rest walked in circles around the entrance of the house. Chapter 2933, Don't Look Down on Me, Alright? 1. After searching for a long time, everyone found nothing. However, Leng Ruoxue did not give up. Hence, after a discussion, they decided to stay here temporarily. After the news reached the city lord's mansion, Lu Fan immediately rushed over and looked at Leng Ruoxue and the others with a bitter expression. However, his resentful expression was ignored by everyone present. Lu Fan was very worried. He could only leave resentfully, looking back 3 times with every step he took. After living in the suburbs, Leng Ruoxue and the rest seemed to have nothing to do every day. However, all of them were using their divine senses to check for suspicious people. At present, there were fewer people living in the suburbs than when they had first arrived. It was said that those who had less people had moved to the city, and they had only moved away in a hurry after the rumor of the man-eating flower had spread. After all, this place was too remote. If something really happened, he was afraid that he would not be able to find anyone to save him. When Leng Ruoxue found out that this was the reason for the sharp drop in the number of people here, she had mixed feelings. She couldn't understand. The suburbs were dangerous, but would it be safe to move to the city? Don't forget, the man-eating flower was in the city lord's mansion. In her opinion, moving to the city would be more convenient for the man-eating flower to eat. Later, after a burly man who tried to please them explained, she finally understood that the people who had moved to the city had joined various forces in order to seek shelter. Those people felt that they would be safe once they joined the city of abandoned ruins, but Leng Ruoxue could not help but complain. If Tsang had not destroyed the city lord and the blood cherry blossom tree had not fallen under their control, all the people in the city of abandoned ruins would have become the blood cherry blossom tree's backup food. Those forces would have been nothing more than granaries. However, there were benefits to those people leaving. Their departure had reduced the difficulty of their investigation. Currently, there were more than 30 households living here. After a few days of patient observation, Leng Ruoxue and the rest had already eliminated 32 households that were not suspicious. There were still 5 households that were the main targets of their observation and were under close surveillance. Very quickly, the information of these 5 families was placed in front of Leng Ruoxue and the rest. Among these 5 families, there was the man who had struck up a conversation with Uncle Long and the others. The members of the other families were also very simple. They did not have many family members. Hence, after discussing with Uncle Long and the others, Leng Ruoxue decided to get in touch with these families. After splitting up, Leng Ruoxue and the rest went their separate ways. She and the demon were in the same team, and their target was the family of 3. As neighbors, it was proper for them to visit each other. However, when the family of 3 saw Leng Ruoxue and the demon, they were obviously a little uneasy. In the city of abandoned ruins, neighbors rarely visited each other. Therefore, they were nervous when Leng Ruoxue and the demon came to visit. Leng Ruoxue only needed a single glance to know the strength of this family of 3. The male master was at the peak of the God King stage while the female master should have just advanced to the God King stage not long ago. As for their only son, he was currently only a god. After sitting down, Leng Ruoxue went straight to the point, "We're here to ask about some things." What's the situation? The man asked cautiously. He knew that the man and woman had only been in the city of forsaken ruins for a short time, but the woman was very famous. He believed that if they really wanted to find out more, they could ask anyone in the city and someone would be willing to tell them. So, he could not understand why the woman would look for him. I heard that 3 phoenixes came to the city of abandoned ruins a while ago. Do you know where they are? Leng Ruoxue asked with a smile. Phoenix? Why would such a noble beast come to the city of abandoned ruins? The male owner had obviously never heard of this and asked with a suspicious look. You guys haven't heard of it? Leng Ruoxue continued to ask, feeling a little disappointed. Thanks, no, I haven't tea. There won't be any high-level beasts here, trust me. Seeing that Leng Ruoxue was only asking about this, the male owner's mood relaxed quite a bit. Hearing this, Leng Ruoxue was even more disappointed because she knew that this man was speaking the truth. When the other party answered the question, his eyes did not flash. Although there was doubt, he did not feel guilty. On the other hand, the mother and son were only at a loss. On top of that, when Leng Ruoxue was asking them questions, Qing Ju had also taken the opportunity to read the family's memories. He confirmed that they had never heard of the 3 phoenixes. With that, the family of 3 was cleared of all suspicion. After Leng Ruoxue and the demon left this house, they headed straight to the next one. Of course, the purpose of going to the next house was naturally to let Green Vessel read the other party's memory. They went to 3 families in a row. After Qing Ju confirmed it, these 3 families no longer had any suspicion of being in contact with Feng Miao, and their scope of investigation became smaller and smaller. There were still 2 families that had not been verified by Qing Ju. One of them was a pair of siblings, and the other was the man who had hit on Uncle Long. They first went to the house of the brother and sister. After knocking on the door, a woman opened the door angrily and asked, "Who?" "We have a friend at your house. We want to find him. Can we go in?" Leng Ruoxue asked with a smile. "You guys are together?" the woman asked unhappily. However, before Leng Ruoxue could reply, she left Leng Ruoxue and the others behind and turned to leave. Seeing this, Leng Ruoxue and the others exchanged glances before following her in. Although they did not understand why this woman's attitude was so bad, it was only when they were face to face that it would be convenient for Green Vessel to read each other's memories. Therefore, even if they were treated coldly, they had to thicken their skin and follow. Walking into the living room, the atmosphere was not very good. Minga sat on the chair with a dark face, and the other man was also glaring at her with a red face. No one knew what had happened between them. As soon as she saw Leng Ruoxue and the others, Ming Ji pounced over as if she had seen her savior. She hugged the demon's arm and cried, "Woo-woo. Boss, help. What's wrong?" The demon frowned and unceremoniously pulled his arm away. He even patted his sleeve in disgust, as if it was stained with something dirty. Seeing this, Ming's heart was filled with sorrow. He felt that he had been hurt. Fortunately, the demon did not know what he was thinking. Otherwise, he would have wanted to hurt him even more. "Did someone bully you?" Leng Ruoxue asked. "There are." Ming Ji nodded her head vigorously and looked at Leng Ruoxue with a gratified expression. "Damn it, who bullied you? You took advantage of my sister, don't you want to take responsibility?" When he heard that Minga was being bullied, the other man in the hall immediately shouted in dissatisfaction. His words caused Leng Ruoxue and the others to widen their eyes in surprise. They looked at the woman who was standing beside the man with a shy expression on her face. They really wanted to ask, who was this? The woman's face was red, and her eyes were watery. She looked like a completely different person from when she was angry just now. However, Leng Ruoxue and the others still couldn't imagine how Ming Ji could take advantage of her. Chapter 2934, Don't Look Down on Me, alright? 2. It should be known that the woman was tall and strong, and there was no feminine charm on her body. As the city lord of the 9 Nether prison, what kind of woman had Ming Ji not seen? So, they couldn't imagine how Ming Ji could possibly take advantage of that woman. Could it be that he had seen too many beautiful women and wanted to change his taste? But wasn't this change of taste a little too much? The crowd couldn't accept it for a moment, and they all turned to look at Ming Song with strange expressions. Minga didn't even need to guess to know what these bad guys were thinking, so he quickly explained, I didn't take advantage of her. I just accidentally touched her hand, and the siblings forced me to take responsibility. As he said this, Minga was so depressed that he almost vomited blood. And these people even doubted his innocence. Boo! What a sad bird. He had to take responsibility just because they touched this matter. Leng Ruoxue and the rest were especially speechless when they heard this. Was your sister's hand very precious? Why do I have to take responsibility for accidentally touching it? What's wrong with making you take responsibility? I'm looking up to you by asking you to take responsibility. The man shouted at Minga. Please don't look down on me, okay? Ming Ji was depressed to death, but this man thought that the reason he could marry his sister was because of his cultivation in his previous life. What the hell is this? No. You have to give us an explanation for this. The man shouted loudly. What kind of explanation do you want? How do you want him to take responsibility? Leng Ruoxue pointed at Ming Ji as she asked the man. This pair of siblings looked very similar. The elder brother was also a strong guy, but his temper was not very good. Meanwhile, Leng Ruoxue had also learned some things from Qing Ju. At the same time, she eliminated the possibility that he knew the whereabouts of the three phoenixes. However, Ming Ji's matter was a little troublesome. It was obvious that the woman wanted to cling to Ming Ji, even if Ming Ji had not done anything at all. The so-called touch was just a deliberate touch when the woman handed Ming Ji the tea. His purpose, of course, was to make Ming Ji take responsibility. The reason was simple. The little sister, who had been ignored all this time, had taken a fancy to Ming Ji. As an elder brother, he naturally had to cooperate fully. The brother and sister were used to being barbaric and could be considered as tyrants in the outskirts of the city of abandoned ruins. Therefore, if they wanted to settle this matter, they had to be tougher. Otherwise, they were afraid that there would be no end to the argument. Leng Ruoxue didn't want to waste her time on unimportant people or things. It's impossible for Ming Ji to marry your sister. Leng Ruoxue said. Why not? Which part of my sister isn't good enough for him? When the man heard this, his anger grew even more. It's not a matter of whether he's worthy or not. Minga doesn't like him at all. Do you want the tyrant to force himself on him? What good would that do to your sister? Leng Ruoxue said helplessly. She could tell that this was a rather stubborn man. He was also a persistent man who had always wanted to marry his sister off. I don't care. He took advantage of my sister, so he has to take responsibility. The man said unreasonably. You have to take responsibility after touching me. What kind of logic is this? Leng Ruoxue was truly speechless. Just how afraid was he that her younger sister would not be able to get married? Don't you know that men and women shouldn't touch each other? The man reminded. All right. But as far as I know, it was your sister who touched Ming Ji. What about that? Leng Ruoxue asked. From what you know. You weren't there at the time, so how could you know? When the man heard Leng Ruoxue's words, he snorted. Thanks, you mean, Ming Ji has no witnesses? Leng Ruoxue blinked her eyes and asked again. Not bad. The man nodded proudly. What if I say that I can read minds? I know everything about you and your sister, including what you're thinking now. Leng Ruoxue said calmly. This is impossible. The man didn't believe it at all. What you're thinking now is that no matter what, you must get your sister married. You can't let go of Ming Ji, this rich son-in-law. If we don't agree, then you're planning to make this matter known to everyone so that the public can condemn us, right? Leng Ruoxue smiled faintly. The man was shocked by Leng Ruoxue's words. He pointed at Leng Ruoxue, unable to complete his sentence. Your sister is thinking that we can't let go of this opportunity. We must hold on to Ming Ji. Leng Ruoxue glanced at the man who was at a loss for words, then looked at his sister. Hearing this, the younger sister's expression changed slightly. She then looked at Leng Ruoxue unhappily and roared, "What are you talking about? He should be the one taking responsibility. Alright, I don't have time to waste on you siblings. I only have one thing to say, don't covet people you can't afford to offend. You must know your own limits." Leng Ruoxue sneered. She really had no more patience. Originally, she had wanted to talk things out and make the siblings give up on this idea, but now that she saw that her younger sister was still so stubborn, she deeply felt that she had to cut the Gordian knot and end the battle as soon as possible. After she finished speaking, Leng Ruoxue gave the evil demon and the rest a look. They understood and walked out. The moment the woman saw this, she immediately stood in front of Leng Ruoxue and the rest and shouted at the top of her voice, "Don't leave. Move!" He shouted. Leng Ruoxue said unhappily, "I want tea. Unless he's willing to marry me." The woman insisted. "I won't marry you," Minga said directly without even looking at the woman. You, the woman was greatly shocked. Ming Ji had never said such harsh words to her before. At that time, she had thought that Ming Ji was interested in her, but who knew? The woman felt her heart break. Was it easy for her to fall for someone? Why did he do this to her? What about me? Get out of my way, don't block our way. In fact, although he wasn't very gentle to women, he rarely said such words directly. Otherwise, he wouldn't have tried to reason with her. But now, he was really forced to lose his patience. This woman not only couldn't read other people's expressions, she was also extremely thick-skinned. "You want us to take action?" After Ming Ji finished speaking, Leng Ruoxue turned to look at the man and said. The man revealed a constipated expression and was a little undecided. Seeing this, Leng Ruoxue smiled indifferently, "If you provoke us, that good brother of yours won't be able to help you. You might even bring trouble to him. You guys can leave." The man helplessly said as he heavily exhaled. He knew who Leng Ruoxue was talking about and the strength of Leng Ruoxue and the others. Otherwise, he wouldn't have used this opportunity to cling on to them. But it was obvious that these people were not people that the two of them could afford to offend. He could only blame himself for being blinded by greed and almost getting himself killed. Thinking of this, the man broke out in a cold sweat. "Brother, you can't let them go," the woman hurriedly said. "Shut up!" The man roared angrily, and the woman immediately didn't dare to make a sound. If even her brother didn't want to help her, she wouldn't dare to pester him anymore. Chapter 29:35, Don't Look Down on Me, Alright? 3. Seeing that the siblings were finally tactful, Leng Ruoxue and the rest did not make things difficult for them. They walked around the dumbfounded woman and left. As they walked out of the siblings' house, Ming Ji kept grumbling to Leng Ruoxue and the others about his grievances, which made everyone happy. Soon, they arrived at the house of the last man. Uncle Long was in charge of that man, and at that moment, Uncle Long was fighting with him. It wasn't that the man was smart or quick-witted, but he was obviously a bit difficult to deal with. He didn't answer Uncle Long's questions directly, which wasted a lot of Uncle Long's time. He didn't get any useful information. The only thing Uncle Long knew was that the man had never seen or heard of a phoenix. However, Uncle Long had already received Shui Er's voice transmission and knew that the other 4 Shui Ers had confirmed that they were no longer suspicious. As such, the man in front of him was the most suspicious person. At this moment, Uncle Long was casually chatting with him. When Leng Ruoxue and the rest arrived, they sat in the living room of the man's house and stared at each other. When they had just entered, the man had already told Leng Ruoxue that he had not even seen a single phoenix feather before. After sitting for a while, Leng Ruoxue received a message from Green Vessel, "Sister, I can't read this man's memory." "Why can't I read it?" Leng Ruoxue asked in confusion. "I suspect that he has a divine weapon that can block my mind reading." Qing Ju guessed. "There's such a divine weapon?" Leng Ruoxue was a little surprised. This was the first time she had heard of such a divine weapon. Yes. In the past, the old master liked to make some messy things, so he once made a divine artifact that could block people from reading their minds. However, that divine artifact was very useless. Other than preventing people from reading their minds, it had no other use. Back then, the old master also made it for fun. After he finished, he seemed to have given it away. As for who he gave it to, I can't remember clearly. Qing Ju said honestly. What do we do now? Leng Ruoxue was out of ideas. Initially, he thought that Qing Ju would be able to help if the man refused to cooperate. Now, Qing Ju had no other way. Moreover, the man's mouth was shut more tightly than the clamshell. Was there any way to pry his mouth open? Leng Ruoxue glanced at the man and saw that he was calm and composed. She knew that this man was not an ordinary person to deal with. There's no other way. Unless we reveal our identity, the premise is that they must be interested in or afraid of our identity. Otherwise, we can forget about it. Qing Ju said helplessly. Leng Ruoxue felt even more helpless. Revealing her identity was the last resort. She wasn't so narcissistic that she thought that once she said her name, people would immediately tell her what she wanted to know. But now, she really didn't know what to do. Why don't we just wait here? Let's see who can outlast who. Leng Ruoxue, who couldn't think of any good ideas, decided to stay here rather calmly. Of course, this wasn't the best plan. It was a more shameless way of doing things. The man could tell as well. At first, he was quite calm, but as time went on, especially when it was late at night and the neighbors in front of him still didn't have any intention of leaving, he felt a little annoyed. It's getting late, after thinking for a long time, the man reminded. Yes. Leng Ruoxue nodded her head to show that she understood. However, none of them had any intention of leaving. They continued to sit there like old monks in meditation. Shuer, I'm hungry. Uncle Long said pitifully. When she heard Uncle Long say that he was hungry, Leng Ruoxue quickly took out a pile of food from her bracelet. Then, the few of them gathered together and started eating as if there was no one else around. When the man saw this scene, he was a little confused. What the hell is this? She was sitting in his living room and eating in front of him. Why didn't she treat him, the host? The dishes that the little girl had brought out were so fragrant that he was so envious that his appetite was about to burst out. However, she had completely ignored him as if he did not exist. This fact made the man deeply depressed. I say, you guys are just going to eat and drink in front of me? The man couldn't take it anymore and asked angrily. You want to eat? Leng Ruoxue blinked her beautiful eyes as she asked. Yes, I do. The man was very honest. Tell me where the 3 phoenixes are and they'll treat you to some. Leng Ruoxue stated her conditions. I really don't know. The man said helplessly. He felt depressed in his heart. Can you not be like this? This was bullying. Since you don't want to cooperate, I have no other choice. Leng Ruoxue's face was filled with regret. Then, she ignored the man's existence and turned around to eat. Everyone finished eating the food in front of the man and burped. They continued to stare at each other. Seeing them like this, the man really wanted to scratch the wall. How could they bully people like this? This was his home. The man glared at Leng Ruoxue and her group of people. However, Leng Ruoxue and her group had long been trained to be thick-skinned, so why would they care? Leng Ruoxue and the rest had decided to fight to the death with the man. Let's see who can last longer. Thanks. Several days later, the man was on the verge of a mental breakdown. These people's skin was already so thick that it was unimaginable. He had even opened his mouth to drive them away, but they refused to leave. The man was quite helpless about this outcome. What to do? They couldn't be driven away. He could not beat him. And these people always ate delicious food in front of him that he had never seen before, making him drool all over the ground, but they never invited him to eat. A bunch of bastards. The man who had been provoked to the point of stomping his feet was so hateful that he wanted to bite them a few times. They were really too hateful. The man admitted that he had lived for so long, but he had never seen such a rascal. "What do you want?" After 3 days, the man finally asked listlessly. "We just want to know where the 3 phoenixes are," Leng Ruoxue said with a smile. "Don't tell me you don't know. If you still say that, then we can only continue to stay here and stare at you," Leng Ruoxue added. "You guys. You've really gone too far. If you don't want to leave, then I'll leave," the man roared. "I'm afraid of you guys. Well, follow you wherever you go." Leng Ruoxue continued to be a scoundrel. Hearing this, the man was furious. "I really admire your thick skin." The man sighed and said sincerely. "Thank you for the compliment." Leng Ruoxue nodded, then looked at the man with a serious expression. She asked curiously, "You look like this now, is it because you were poisoned?" "How did you know?" The man was shocked. Although he looked a little old, even an alchemist couldn't tell that he had been poisoned. Now, this woman had seen through it with a single sentence. "How did she know?" "I guessed it. Your face is old, but your body is still tall and straight. You look young and healthy. I guess you forced the poison to your face. Are you afraid of being recognized?" Leng Ruoxue continued to guess. "This is none of your business," the man said indifferently. "Actually, what I wanted to say is, if you're willing, I can help you detoxify," Leng Ruoxue said honestly. "I told you, I don't know where the phoenix is." The man looked at Leng Ruoxue and said. "It's just an antidote. If you really don't want to tell me the whereabouts of the 3 phoenixes, I won't force you," Leng Ruoxue explained when she saw that the man had misunderstood her. "Why?" The man didn't understand. Before, he had indeed thought that this was the other party's condition, but he didn't expect that the woman in front of him would actually be willing to detoxify him unconditionally. Was this possible? More importantly, his poison wasn't that easy to cure. "We've been sharing a room for a few days. It's only right for me to help you. Just treat it as paying for your accommodation." Leng Ruoxue smiled. However, the man clearly did not believe Leng Ruoxue's words so easily. He kept looking at Leng Ruoxue suspiciously. "This is an antidote pill, eat it." To show her sincerity, Leng Ruoxue took out a blue pill and handed it over. "Normal antidotes can't cure my poison," the man replied honestly. "This isn't an ordinary antidote." "What, you don't dare to eat it? Are you afraid that it'll poison you too?" Leng Ruoxue provoked him on purpose. "I'm not afraid." The man knew that she was trying to goad him into action, but he didn't want to be looked down upon by a woman. So, he reached out to take the pill and swallowed it. Not long after, the man clearly felt a burning pain in his stomach. In the end, he couldn't stand the pain anymore. He directly covered his stomach and rolled from the chair to the ground. He was in so much pain that he started rolling. The man was very tough. Although he was in pain, he clenched his teeth without making a sound. Sweat slid down his forehead, and soon, his face was as pale as paper, and his eyes were unfocused. Uncle Long, who had a good impression of the man, was worried. "It's fine, Uncle Long. Please help me bring him back to his room." Leng Ruoxue gave Uncle Long a comforting look. Hearing this, Uncle Long quickly carried the man back to his room. Leng Ruoxue and the rest were still waiting in the living room. After a few hours, the man finally ended his painful torture and walked out of the room. At this time, his face no longer had the old look he had before. Although he could not be considered handsome, he was quite elegant. However, after a few hours of torture, he looked a little weak. "What kind of antidote is this? Why does it hurt so much?" The man could not help but ask Leng Ruoxue the moment they came out. "That's right, because what I gave you wasn't an antidote pill, but poison." Leng Ruoxue laughed evilly. Upon hearing this, the man's face turned even paler. He glared at Leng Ruoxue in disbelief. The hatred in his heart. He knew that this woman was up to no good. Now, he had been tricked again. However, he didn't know what kind of poison he had been poisoned with, because he couldn't feel any discomfort in his body at all, except that he was a little weak. Chapter 29:36, The Twins, 1. However, no one would be in a good mood when they heard that they were poisoned again. The man glared at Leng Ruoxue for a long time with complicated feelings. He did not say anything. After a moment, Leng Ruoxue smiled and said, "Don't worry, your poison has already been detoxified. Don't you feel that your body is in great condition now? Of course, if you insist on thinking that you've been poisoned by another type of poison, I have no objections." Leng Ruoxue's infuriating words left the man speechless. He continued to glare at Leng Ruoxue. After a long time, he finally said, "I'm really not poisoned. If I say no, would you believe me?" Leng Ruoxue blinked her eyes and asked with a smirk. "Can you not believe me?" The man was furious. Having lived for so many years, he had seen all kinds of people, but this was the first time he had seen someone as infuriating as the woman in front of him. At this moment, Dong Fangyu stood up and shook his head helplessly. "Shuai, don't scare him. We're old friends." Hearing Dong Fangyu's words, Leng Ruoxue couldn't help but raise her brows. The man also looked at Dong Fangyu in surprise and asked, "Old friend? Do we know each other?" When the man asked this, he was still sizing up Dong Fangyu. He couldn't tell that this ordinary-looking, even somewhat ugly, fellow was someone he knew. "Guardian Wing, Im Dong Fangyue." Dong Fangyu sighed. "Dong Fangyue. The missing Dong Fangyue." The man, also known as Wei Yi, turned pale with fright and sized him up even more seriously. "You're the one who's missing." Dong Fang was getting angrier. "Ah. Do you have any proof that you're Dong Fangyu?" Wei Yi ignored Dong Fangyu's rage and continued to ask. The suspicion on his face only increased. "Do you need evidence?" Dong Fangyu was speechless. Could it be that someone would dare to impersonate him? Or did this guy meet a fake Dong Fangyu? "Of course I do. Because the Dong Fangyu I know doesn't look like you at all. Besides, your temperament is very different from the Dong Fangyu I know, so I have enough reason to suspect that you're lying to me unless you have evidence." Wei Yi looked at Dong Fangyu with a face full of vigilance. At the same time, he felt a little regretful. If he had known that he would be recognized, he would have dressed up properly. He had been too careless. He had never thought that after so many years, there would still be people who remembered his existence. Could it be that they were on someone's side? If that was the case, then they would be in big trouble. Wei Yi had a headache. What should he do in this situation? Self-defense or counterattack? Looking at Leng Ruoxue, Wei Yi's heart was at a loss. Although the other party had given him poison, it had indeed cured him of the poison. As for whether there would be any residual effects, he couldn't determine at the moment. Naturally, he couldn't decide what attitude he should have towards these people in front of him. Especially when someone among them recognized him. Although that person called himself Dong Fangyu, it was clearly not an easy task to persuade him. Leng Ruoxue could tell what the other party was thinking. She smiled faintly and said, "He is indeed Dong Fangyu. As for why he is different from the people you know, it's simple. He has changed his appearance." "Really? Then remove your disguise and let me see." Hearing this, Wei Yi requested. "All right. However, you'll have to wait for more than a month." Leng Ruoxue replied honestly. "Why? You guys aren't thinking of buying time, are you?" Hearing Leng Ruoxue's words, Wei Yi's suspicions deepened, and he looked at Leng Ruoxue and the others with a face of disbelief. "Thanks, of course not. There's a time limit to the disguise pill we took, and we still need to have Toppen to recover our original looks." Leng Ruoxue explained. "You guys? You've all changed your appearances." Wei Yi caught the sensitive words in Leng Ruoxue's words and asked. Yes, I am. Leng Ruoxue nodded. No wonder. However, don't you have an antidote for that face-changing pill? Wei Yi continued to be suspicious. There is. However, this disguise pill is a bit special. Even if you have the antidote, you can only take it after 3 months, or else the antidote won't work. Leng Ruoxue said honestly. Who knew that when she said this, the distrust on Wei Yi's face would deepen. Shuer, don't talk nonsense with this old brat. Turn up the elder. Uncle Long couldn't help but interrupt. Ah. Leng Ruoxue was speechless. What did he mean by elder da? Uncle Long. First elder wasn't woof woof. However, she still obediently moved the great elder, who was refining in the bracelet, out. The Armament Guild's chief elder, who had suddenly been moved to another place, appeared with a blank expression. He held a piece of black ore in his hand and studied it. After a moment of confusion, the chief elder said dumbly, "Where's my furnace? Girl, why didn't you say anything before you moved me out? I'm asking you to come out and be a witness." Leng Ruoxue wiped away the cold sweat on her forehead and hurriedly said. What kind of certificate? I'm busy. The head elder of the Armament Guild headquarters was a little displeased. Other people had a temper when they woke up, but he had a temper when refining armaments. Especially when he was interrupted while refining armaments, his temper was definitely on a nightmare level. Little Lulu. At this moment, the chief elder of the Craftsmen's Guild headquarters heard a soft call in disbelief. At the same time, Leng Ruoxue and the rest were sweating profusely because of these 3 words. Obviously, the other party was calling him the head elder of the Craftsmen's Guild because he was the only one with the surname Lu among the people present. Hearing this long-lost pet name, the great elder of the Craftsmen's Guild suddenly burst into tears. He slowly turned his head in disbelief. Then, he pounced on the guard wing and hugged him as he wailed, "Woo! Guild leader! I thought I would never see you again in this life." Hearing the great elder address the other party as president, Leng Ruoxue finally understood why Uncle Long had asked her to promote him as an elder. As expected, the great elder was more useful. Even without their nonsense, Wei Yi had already taken the initiative to recognize her. Now, the great elder was hugging Wei Yi and crying while Wei Yi was coaxing him with a gentle expression. This scene, no matter how Leng Ruoxue looked at it, made her feel like they were in love. After an unknown period of time, Wei Yi, who could feel the burning gazes of the few people present, coaxed the great elder until he was almost done. He then looked at Leng Ruoxue and the rest in anger and shouted, "Have you seen enough? Don't worry about us, you guys continue." Leng Ruoxue put on an understanding expression. "Continue, my ass." Leng Ruoxue's words made Wei Yi go a little crazy. Which house did this brat come from? Why is he so annoying? Shuer, stop fooling around. This is our Armament Guild's guild master. He's the first. Seeing Shuer make fun of the guard division, which he regarded as his master, the great elder wiped his tears and hurriedly said. The founding president of the Craftsmen's Guild. Leng Ruoxue blinked her eyes and re-examined Wei Yi. I really couldn't tell. The City of Desolation was actually a place with crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Chapter 2937, The Twins, 2, that's right. Little girl, what's your relationship with little Lulu? Wei Yi nodded and then asked. President, can you not call me that in front of this junior? Let's just call him little Lulu in private. The great elder, who was slow to react, requested. Why? Wei Yi blinked his eyes. He clearly didn't think there was anything wrong with the name, little Lulu. Ugh! The head elder was very depressed. Could he say that the name little Lulu was an insult to his dignity as the head elder of the craftsmen's headquarters? Did he dare to say it? If he said it, with the president's bad taste, not only would he not change it, but he would also become worse. AI. The great elder sighed. From a certain point of view, he had a nameless master and was the same type of person as Shuer and the others. Great elder is embarrassed. Leng Ruoxue considerately answered First Elder's doubts when she saw that he was having a hard time explaining. This time, she made First Elder's face turn red. But at the same time, Leng Ruoxue had once again attracted the attention of the guard wing. Oh! Little Lulu makes me feel very close to him, and it also reminds me of little Lulu when he was young. He was so cute when he was young, and I've known him since he was still a little boy. Wei Yi seemed to be reminiscing. As a result, the Great Elder wished he could find a hole to hide in. Oh! President! Could she not mention his childhood? However, it was clear that the people present were all very interested in the Great Elder's childhood. Their eyes were fixed on Wei Yi, hoping that he would reveal more. However, Wei Yi also knew when to stop, and didn't really expose the Great Elder as they had hoped. Then, he asked again, "Little girl, you still haven't told me what your relationship with the Great Elder is." "The Great Elder is a good friend of my godfather. Shuai is my sugar daddy," the two of them said in unison. The two of them gave completely different answers, which completely confused Wei Yi. Then, he looked at the Great Elder in disappointment and said, "Little Lulu, you've fallen." The Great Elder was silent. Shuai was indeed his financial backer now, to provide him with all sorts of ores. Leng Ruoxue took the initiative to change the topic as she glanced at the silent First Elder. "Lord Wei Yi, can you tell me the whereabouts of the three phoenixes?" "I don't know," Wei Yi still said. Hearing this answer, Leng Ruoxue was so depressed that she wanted to scratch the wall. She had already called him an elder, but why was the other party's mouth still shut as tightly as a clamshell? "President, if you know, please tell Shuai." Seeing this, the First Elder said, "I don't know." Wei Yi still said the same thing. "Wei Yi, those three phoenixes are Shuai's beastie." "Dongfang, you said. What evidence do you have?" Wei Yi asked indifferently. "You want evidence again?" Leng Ruoxue was going crazy. Why did this person need evidence for everything? "Your Excellency Wei Yi, I am Leng Ruoxue." Seeing that the First Elder was no longer useful, Leng Ruoxue had no choice but to reveal her family name. "I've never heard of it." Wei Yi's expression was as calm as ever. "All right." She wasn't a top-grade crystal, so she couldn't let everyone know about her. Thanks. After taking a few deep breaths, Leng Ruoxue continued, "My master is Master Yu." Evidence. Guardian Wing, again. Leng Ruoxue was completely driven mad. Other than asking her to produce evidence, couldn't this fellow say anything else? The Great Elder can prove it. After being speechless for a while, Leng Ruoxue suppressed the urge to beat him up and gritted her teeth. "Guild Master, Shuai is really Master Yes disciple," the First Elder quickly said. Unfortunately, Wei Yi didn't even believe his words. He just looked at them quietly. The Great Elder was helpless. He knew that the president's stubbornness had come up. It didn't matter who said it. In the end, they looked at each other and Uncle Long asked helplessly, "What do we have to do for you to believe us?" "It's simple. Show me the evidence," Wei Yi said casually. "Even your own disciple can't?" Uncle Long asked, speechless. "We haven't seen each other for too long." The guard division's excitement from seeing the Great Elder had disappeared, and it was now abnormally rational. "Guild leader, we're not working for that wretched person. You'll know once you leave the city of forsaken desolation." The Great Elder, who understood the Guardian Wing very well, said after some thought. "I won't leave this place now." Wei Yi was a bit stubborn. "What exactly do you want?" Leng Ruoxue was infuriated and roared. "I only want evidence. The Guardian Wing won't turn back until it hits a wall. Girl, leave this guy to me." At this moment, Tsang, who had been napping in Leng Ruoxue's arms, opened his eyes and said, "It had had enough. This person was really good at that." After speaking, Azure directly swept away Guardian Wing. "Will the guild leader be all right?" After Tsang and Wei Yi disappeared, the Great Elder said nervously. He was afraid that Senior Tsang would hurt Wei Yi in a fit of anger. "It'll be fine," Len Ruoxue gave the Grand Elder a consoling look, then asked him about the situation of the Guardian Wing. The Great Elder spilled everything that Len Ruoxue wanted to know. He also found out from Len Ruoxue that the Guardian Wing had been poisoned. In an instant, he became more and more nervous. "Shuer, you have to help the president. He's a good person, but he's a little stubborn sometimes." First Elder pleaded. "Don't worry. His poison has been cured." Len Ruoxue replied honestly. When First Elder heard this, he immediately felt relieved. Then, he requested Len Ruoxue to send him back to the bracelet. After Wei Yi was grabbed by the collar by a rabbit, the only feeling he had was depression, extreme depression. Not only was this rabbit strong, but it was also very fast. In the blink of an eye, Guard Wing didn't know where he was. Feeling the strong wind whistling past his ears, Wei Yi adapted to it for a long time before he endured the pain on his face from the wind blades and asked, "Where is this place? Where are you taking me?" He had never dreamed that a rabbit would have such strength. One had to know that he was a reverent god. Although his strength was relatively weak among reverent god-level cultivators, he was still much stronger than a rabbit. However, this rabbit today had greatly stimulated him. This rabbit was really too intrepid. He had started to teleport while carrying him without even panting. How could the hierarch bear this? If Uncle Long and the others weren't here, they would have comforted him. "You'll be fine once you get used to it." However, on the way here, not to mention getting used to it, Wei Yi simply didn't dare to look directly at the intrepid rabbit that was carrying him. "Didn't you want evidence? I'll take you there." Azure coldly glanced at Wei Yi and spoke truthfully. "So, we've already left the city of abandoned ruins?" Wei Yi was shocked. How much time had passed? He left the city. Moreover, he didn't even know how to get out of the city. This didn't make sense. Chapter 2938, The Twins, 3, correct. "I'm going to take you to the Imperial City now," Azure said indifferently. "Imperial City? I'm not going there." Hearing this, Wei Yi immediately refused. The mist was trying to catch him. He was not willing to walk right into a trap. But since Tsangdu had said so, would it be useful to refuse? "Brat, this is not up to you," Azure said emotionlessly. "Humph. From the moment you asked Nyo for evidence, you were destined to take a trip to the Imperial City today." Although it wasn't wrong for Wei Yi to be more cautious, it was wrong that the person he was careful of was Len Ruoxue. This had triggered Tsang's forbidden lamella, so Wei Yi was destined to be at Tsang's mercy. "Don't want to. Are you dreaming? Why, you're kidnapping me." Seeing how overbearing Azure was, Guard Wing couldn't help but shout. "You're right. I'm kidnapped. What can you do to me?" He then found a quiet place and threw the Guard Wing in his hand to the ground. Wei Yi didn't know what was going on. He thought that the rabbit had finally put him down obediently. Who knew that the next second, a white light flashed in front of his eyes, and then he felt a sharp pain in his body. He looked down and saw that there was a claw mark on his chest. Blood was still seeping out of the 5 small grooves. He was injured. Tens of thousands of years had passed. Other than being tortured by poison, the first time he was injured was by a rabbit. This reality greatly hurt Wei Yi's self-esteem. However, before he could react, a white light flashed in front of him in a dazzling manner. A more intense pain spread from his internal organs. "Arg! It hurts. Stop scratching." Wei Yi covered his face and begged for mercy. This rabbit was really too wicked. After scratching its body, it specifically scratched its face. His face, which had been restored to its original appearance with great difficulty, was burning at this moment. It was even 100 times more painful than his body. This was the rhythm of disfigurement. Woo! Wei Yi was in tears. He was definitely going to be bullied by a rabbit today. He wanted to fight back, but this rabbit's aura was firmly suppressing him, causing him to be forced to endure it passively. Humph. This is just to teach you a lesson for doubting my girl. Azure sneered and stopped clawing. This guy didn't make any major mistakes, so just giving him a small lesson would do. The reason why he didn't do this in front of Nyo was because he was afraid that Nyo would be put in a difficult position. Who asked this guy to have a relationship with the great elder of the Craftsmen's Guild headquarters? It had to say, nepotism. How annoying. After Blue stopped, Wei Yi saw that he was finally safe. He carefully looked at Blue's expression and then took out a healing pill. After a while, the injuries on her body finally didn't hurt as much. However, his healing pills were only ordinary, so they only relieved the pain. His face and body were still covered in wounds. When Azure saw this, he immediately took out a supreme-grade healing pill and said to Wei Yi with a look of disdain, "Look at your poor appearance. You don't even have a decent healing pill. How do you survive?" She was being despised. Woo, this rabbit was really not likable. However, with the lesson learned, Guard Wing naturally wouldn't easily provoke Tsang. He silently took the pill and swallowed it. The injuries on his body and face were immediately healed. Other than the claw marks on his clothes, there was no other evidence that he had suffered inhuman abuse. From the looks of it, he was indeed worse than a rabbit. What kind of world is this? Why was it that even a rabbit was richer than him? One had to know that he was a blacksmith. He was one of the most top-notch god-grade artifact masters in the divine realm, but a certain rabbit had defeated him with a single healing medicinal pill. Yu Sang looked up at the sky at a 45-degree angle. Wei Yi wanted to pretend that the rabbit in front of him didn't exist, but that was obviously impossible. After taking care of Guard Wing, Azure continued to teleport with him. Thanks, in less than 2 days, they arrived at Yu City. At the entrance of the Imperial City, Wei Yi hurriedly lowered his head, afraid that he would be recognized. Useless thing, you only have this little courage. I have a grudge against the Divine Master. It'll be finished if she finds out. Wei Yi said gloomily. I'm here, what are you afraid of? Tsang's face was filled with disapproval. He raised his head with difficulty and glanced at Tsang, but he was being held by Tsang's collar. He could only see the fluffy white fur on Tsang's body. No matter how strong you were still a rabbit. However, it didn't take long for this rabbit to open his eyes. Changing its color, Tsang swaggered to the city gate with Guard Wing. This was the first time the guards of the city had seen a human being carried by a beastie, so they laughed out loud without even asking. Their wild and unbridled laughter made Wei Yi want to find a hole to hide in. His reputation. All gone. However, he had disappeared for too long, and it seemed that these people had long forgotten who he was. Good, good. With this thought, Wei Yi's heart relaxed. Are you done laughing? Azure asked indifferently. Ha ha ha. This is so interesting. Little rabbit, are you this person's master? One of the guards asked. Although they were called rabbits, Totoro, and cats, it had already been marked in their city. However, the rabbit in front of them was not white but gray, so the guard did not realize that this rabbit was equally dangerous. According to their thinking, white was white and gray was gray. No one could change their colors as they wished. But Tsang could. It could change into whatever it wanted, which led to these people's tragic ending. However, at this moment, they did not realize it at all and even laughed even more intensely. He's not my master, he's my captive. Azure replied calmly. Hearing this, Wei Yi successfully revived himself. It was too embarrassing. He had become a captive. He wasn't captured by the mist, but he became a rabbit. Fortunately, these people did not know him. However, it was annoying enough that they could not stop laughing. However, with that rabbit around, the guard wing decided to be magnanimous and not argue with those guards. Otherwise, it would be too disgraceful. Captive? Ha ha ha. How useless must this person be to be taken as a captive by a rabbit? Someone asked while laughing. He's not trash. It was a pity that Sung Dao's words were not convincing. Hearing this, the guards laughed even louder. After a long time, a guard who laughed so hard that tears came out of his eyes asked, "Little Rabbit, are you guys planning to enter the city?" "Nonsense, if we don't enter the city, who would come here?" "I'm sorry," Sung Wooji said calmly as he glanced at the other party like a fool. "You," the guard choked and was so angry that he almost choked. Then, he shouted, "You can enter after paying the entrance fee." City entrance fee. This lord never pays a fee when entering the city. Sung waved his claws and said domineeringly. Of course, the main reason was that he had no money. "If you don't pay the entrance fee, you're forbidden from entering." The guard roared. "This is not up to you. I advise you to let me in if you know what's good for you. I won't make things difficult for you. I just want to go in and find someone, but if you insist on collecting the city fee from me, then I can only." Azure deliberately left out half of his words. Chapter 2939, The Twins, 4. The guard was fooled and asked with a glare, "Can only what? You want to know?" Azure smiled evilly. The guard nodded dumbly. "Watch carefully," Azure warned, and then a small claw slightly raised, and a faint divine power light blade flew out, smashing on the city wall. As the light blade was too small, even thinner than a strand of hair, the city wall was still intact after it hit the wall. The guard was amused by this scene. "Ha ha ha. Do you think you're that rabbit Leng Ruoxue? He wanted to smash the city wall with this little strength." "Humph. You overestimate yourself," the guard scolded in disdain and ridicule, but before he could finish, he heard a crack in his ear. Kacha! Immediately after that, the section of the city wall behind him fell straight down and crashed toward him. The guard was immediately dumbfounded. When he reacted and wanted to run, the collapsed city wall just happened to hit his thigh. At this time, Sung ruthlessly kicked the other party. This time, the guard was firmly pressed by the city wall. He didn't even have the time to cry out in pain before the unlucky guard fainted. Seeing this scene, Wei Yi couldn't help but cover his face. This scene was too beautiful, and he didn't dare to look at it directly. At the same time, the city gate was in chaos. Someone suddenly shouted, "Alert! Warning! The rabbit tribe is attacking." Just as someone shouted, the city wall that had not collapsed just now seemed to respond to his scream and collapsed like dominoes. "What a good thing you've done." Seeing this, Wei Yi did not hesitate to blame the other party. As the saying goes, those who watch the show are not afraid of things blowing up. Since he had no choice but to come here, he could only go with the flow. After seeing the rabbit's fearsome attributes, he decisively gave up and hugged Tsang's thigh. This rabbit was amazing. "No. It's not my fault." The guard who had been wronged by the guard wing wanted to cry but had no tears. This really had nothing to do with him. This city wall was clearly collapsed by that rabbit, so how could it be counted as him? Woo! The guard felt that the sky was going to rain red. Who would help him clear his name? How is it none of your business? Before you shouted, the city wall was still fine, but after you shouted, the city wall collapsed. There's no way you can get away with it, we have so many eyes on you. Don't you guys agree? After the guard wing criticized a certain guard, they formed an alliance with the other foolish guards. Hearing guard wing's words, the guards instantly came back to their senses and looked at the unlucky guard with distrust, their faces full of doubt. If someone had to be the scapegoat for this matter, other than that rabbit, it would be this person. All the guards made the same decision and abandoned their companions. As the one who had been abandoned, the guard was so angry that he almost vomited blood. After choking on his words and emphasizing that it had nothing to do with him, the guard passed out in anger. Wei Yi took a look and was greatly surprised. He didn't expect himself to have such an ability. If he had known this would happen, he would have used this chi mist flame back then. At that moment, he regretted not realizing that he had this ability earlier. I wonder if it's too late to pick up this specialty now. He couldn't make up his mind, but Sung gave him an encouraging look. Suddenly, Wei Yi was excited. Thanks as a newly developed skill besides refining, the guard division was very excited. Just as they were about to find a few people to practice with, a group of guards suddenly ran out of the city. The leader of the group had the back of a tiger and the waist of a bear. As soon as he appeared, he asked in a loud voice, "The rabbit tribe is here. Where is he? If you're talking about me, I'm here." Azure waved his meaty paws and looked at the person who spoke. "Only you? Didn't they say that the rabbit tribe was attacking?" The leader of the guards was obviously a little disappointed. He had thought that there would be a rabbit slaughtering competition, but who knew that there was only one rabbit in front of him? This rabbit was not even the size of his palm. How could they fight it? Fuck. Who said that the rabbit tribe had attacked? After asking Song, the guard leader turned to the guards guarding the city and roared. When the city guard heard this, he immediately took a large step back in tacit understanding. This way, he just happened to expose the guard who said that the rabbit tribe had attacked. Fuck. You were the one who shouted? The leader of the guards gave the other party a hard knock on the head, and then said angrily, "There's only one rabbit, and you call it an attack by the rabbit tribe? What's with your eyes? Do you have to make such a fuss?" "Boss, it collapsed the city wall," one of the guards reminded him while holding his head that was in pain. At this time, the captain of the guards who had rushed over suddenly realized that the city wall had indeed become a pile of ruins. No wonder he felt that something was missing when he came. He finally found the problem. Wei Yi deeply admired the guard leader's obvious belatedness, and cleverly pretended to be invisible. If it was a high-end dispute, it was obviously not something that a small figure like him could solve. As expected, when the guard leader heard the guard's words, he turned to glare at Sung and asked, "You're the one who collapsed the city wall? What's your relationship with the other white rabbit?" "We're twins," Azure said with a smile. Twins. The guard leader was conflicted by this answer. He knew how strong that rabbit was, so this one was probably not something he could deal with at his level. "Go and inform the 3 Xianyi sirs. The younger twin brother of the rabbit is here." The leader of the guards made a decisive decision. Then, a guard quickly left like the wind. "Who told you I'm your little brother?" At this time, Azure looked at the guard leader with dissatisfaction. "Are you the older brother?" The guard leader was dumbfounded. He didn't know that this rabbit would care so much about seniority. "It's a must," Azure said matter-of-factly. Hearing Sung's words, Guardian Wing laughed in his heart. If he didn't know that the rabbit had changed its color, he would have believed its words. But now, Jian Sung had played the guard leader like a fool, and he felt very satisfied. Not long after, the extremely unwilling Xian Yi and the other two also slowly walked out of the city. Looking at the collapsed city wall, the three of them were very calm, because they were used to it. If the walls of the imperial city didn't collapse every few days, they wouldn't be able to adapt to it. However, what Xian Yi didn't understand was, when did Sung, that fake rabbit, have a twin brother? Why didn't he hear about it? Could it be that there were 2 guardian tower spirits? At the city gate, Xian Yi, as the representative of the 3 reverent god-level cultivators, asked first, "May I ask who you are?" "I am the heavens." Azure gave him face as he smiled. "Good day, Sir Tian." The corners of Xian Yi's mouth twitched. One was Azure and the other was Heaven. Wasn't it Azure Heaven when they were put together? It was just that he didn't know when another Earth would appear, and they would make a pair. Chapter 2940, The Twins, 5, The Heavens and the Earth. How domineering. Pulling back his wandering thoughts, Xian Yi coughed twice and asked in all seriousness, "May I know what business you have in the Imperial City?" "Do you still need to ask?" "Of course, I'm here to cause trouble," Azure said calmly. "All right." He had asked an idiotic question. Xian Yi was a little annoyed. He knew that without Shuer, no one could make Senior Tsang speak properly. What do we do now? Seeing this, Xia Yi could not help but ask in a low voice. What else can we do? Of course, I'll report this to the Divine Master. Xian Yi said with a smile. Ah. All right. Xia Yi sincerely prayed that when the Divine Master saw this rabbit, he would be able to remain calm and not explode with anger. Xia Yi called over a guard and gave him some instructions. The guard ran away as if he had received a special pardon. The three of you are not bad. Seeing them so tactful, Tsang was simply too satisfied. As for Wei Yi, he looked at the scene in front of him and felt extremely confused. What was going on? Bastard! What are you doing here? At this moment, an angry roar sounded in everyone's ears. When Guard Wing heard this sound, he knew that it was the mist ripple. Immediately, he lowered his head even more, afraid that he would be recognized. A gust of wind blew, and Wu Xiao, who was dressed in black, appeared. Azure looked at Wu Xiao with a smile and said, "Little Yanlian bitch, why did you change to black?" Could it be that he knew that he looked too ugly in red? You shut up. The mist was furious. Stop roaring. Please don't roar. You haven't recovered from your injuries yet. If the blood vessels burst, how much blood would we have to suck to make up for it? Cold quickly comforted. You're here again. What do you want? Hearing this, Wu Wan gritted her teeth and asked. The veins on her forehead were throbbing. She was already at the limit of her patience. However, she knew that the current her wasn't suitable to be entangled with Tsang. She just wanted to quickly get rid of this annoying fellow. I've brought a little kid here to visit and see if you're still alive. Cold Truth said. Don't worry, I'm alive and well. River Mist replied angrily. That's good, you have to take care of your body, my Nyo still has to personally deal with you. So, you can't die early, understand? Azure said with concern. However, its concern was really driving him crazy. When Wei Yi heard the conversation between the man and the beast, he was so shocked that he didn't know what to say. It was obvious that these two were very familiar, even close to the point of being familiar. However, from their words, he could hear a feeling of love and death. What kind of rhythm was this? It had been too long since Guardwing had been in the God realm. He clearly felt that he couldn't keep up with the situation. This was really too worrying. By the way, please tell this kid that we're not on the same side. Just as Wei Yi was feeling sad, Tsang said and lifted Wei Yi's chin, making him face fog. Thanks. Immediately, Wei Yi burst into tears. Wu Yan's eyes flickered and she shouted, the Guardian Wing. You're finally willing to appear. You've got the wrong person. Wei Yi said in a low voice. At the same time, he couldn't help but glare at Tsang. Wu. Why didn't she let him continue being an ostrich? What, you're as timid as a mouse, you don't even dare to admit your identity. Ripple Mist laughed at Wei Yi's words. Wei Yi didn't say a word. Living was the most important thing. What could he do if he didn't admit his identity? It's not like he'll lose a piece of meat. Wei Yi, hand over the forging experience that you gave you. Seeing that Wei Yi didn't speak, Wu Yan said. What forging insights? I don't know. Wei Yi played dumb. So you're saying that you don't want to protect the Armament Masters Guild? Wu Chen threatened. If it wasn't for the sake of using the Craftsmen's Guild as bait, how could she possibly allow those craftsmen to show off in front of her? Now that they had met the Guardian Wing, the Craftsmen's Guild was naturally not of much use anymore. However, the threatened Guard Wing didn't say anything. In fact, he was having a strong mental struggle. To him, whether it was the Craftsmen's Guild or the smithing experience given to him by Lord Yu, they were both extremely important. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been afraid of being forced to leave the Craftsmen's Guild and hide away by fog. Now that he had reappeared and Fog Ripple had brought up the past, these two things that the other party had threatened him with were both his weaknesses. Little guy, don't be afraid. With me around, this old woman can't threaten you. Feeling Guard Wing's struggle, Blue patted his shoulder and supported him, at the same time blocking the fog's pressure. Tsung, don't meddle in my business. This is a matter between me and him. This little guy is under my protection, so his matters are my matters. Azure smiled faintly, clearly wanting to meddle in this matter to the end. Hearing this, Wei Yi felt Tsung's kindness and naturally continued to hug his thigh. He could see that the two of them really loved each other and wanted to kill each other. As for Rhyme, she couldn't do anything to this rabbit. However, at this time, he still didn't remember Tsung's identity. Or it could be said that he didn't connect the rabbit in front of him with the spirit of the god-protecting tower at all. As for Fog, because of Tsung's words, she was furious. Tsung, it's fine that you're going against me for Leng Ruoxue, but now you're still going against me for the sake of the Guardian Wing? Yes. Going against you is my greatest hobby. Azure smiled evilly. River Ripple was so angry that she couldn't say anything for a long time. After laughing enough, Tsung said, "Little Yanlian bitch. I finally know why this little fellow doesn't dare to come to you city. Isn't it because he has that idiot Yes artifact refining insights in his hands? You don't even know how to refine artifacts, yet you're fighting over this with a little fellow? You're a temporary god lord appointed by the laws of the world. Can we not do such a tasteless thing? Besides, so what if you collect that idiot's things for yourself? That idiot you has already fallen, why do you have to see the object and think of him, deceiving yourself and others? That idiot you doesn't want to see you, and he doesn't want his things to be in your hands. So, I advise you to hand over the things that idiot you left behind. This way, you won't have to look at those things every day and feel sad." Hearing Tsung's words, Ripple Mist was so angry that she was about to explode. She was really just saying whatever she didn't want to hear, and her mouth was smelly and poisonous. What did he mean by snatching from a little fellow? Yes, tool refinement insights should have been hers, alright. What did he mean by a temporary divine master? She was definitely a true divine master. You had fallen, so the god world should be taken over by her, the person closest to her. She wasn't a person without class. He was not deceiving himself. You had pampered her when he was alive, so how could he not want to see her after he died? Fog retorted in her heart, her eyes spitting fire as she glared at Azure and Wei Yi. In reality, she wanted to shout out these retorts, but she knew that no matter what she said, Azure, that annoying fellow, would have thousands of reasons for her. She really didn't want to waste any more time with Azure. At the same time, she also knew that if Cold One was determined to protect Guard Wing, she really couldn't snatch him from that damn cat. All she could do was ignore him. Chapter 2941, The Twins, 6, At the same time, Azure couldn't be bothered with Rhyme Ice. In any case, he had come here today to prove to Wei Yi that he and the others weren't in cahoots with Rhyme Ice. Now that his goal had been achieved, there was no reason for him to continue being entangled with Rhyme Ice. Little Yanlian bitch, I'm here today to prove one thing. What is it? As for Azure's unpredictable behavior, Fog was already too tired to complain, but she still cooperated and asked. Otherwise, this damn cat might come up with some evil tricks again. We're not on the same side. Didn't I just say it? Azure smiled smugly, then turned to ask Guardian Wing, "Little guy, do you believe me now?" "I believe you." Wei Yi was speechless. How could he not believe it? How angry was Wu Jing? However, he could only secretly stomp his feet, but there was nothing he could do about this rabbit that could change its color. In front of these two, he considered himself a disadvantageous group, and it was enough for him to be remembered by Fog alone, so he did not want to be remembered by this rabbit no matter what. That would definitely be a nightmare. It's good that you believe me. Little Yanlian slut, today's matter is over, we will take our leave. After saying that, Azure waved goodbye to Ripple Mist and disappeared with the Guard Wing, causing Ripple Mist's face to darken. Was she being treated like a hot pot? Wu Xiao was really angry that Sung came here just to torment her, but she knew Sung too well and knew that it was absolutely not worth getting angry with him, but she was still angry. The furious Wu Yan glared at the guards who were already trembling like willows in the wind with a dark face before disappointedly disappearing. After Wu Yan had left for a long time, the leader of the guards asked in a daze, "Your Excellency Xian Yi, isn't that rabbit called Tian? Why does the Divine Master call it Sung?" Hearing this, Xian Yi only looked deeply at the head guard and felt an inexplicable worry in his heart. He was quite anxious about the intelligence of the guard leader. Then, without even answering the guard leader's question, Xian Yi also disappeared in a flash. When Xia Yi and the other man saw this, they shook their heads helplessly and left. The guard leader was still confused as he watched the important figures leave one by one. Unfortunately, even the ordinary guards were unwilling to pay attention to him. It was better not to talk about such a sensitive topic. After Tsang left the city with Guardian Wing, he saw Guardian Wing looking at him hesitantly. He immediately shouted, "If you have something to say, then say it." "Senior, can we not be so rough?" Wei Yi secretly sighed, then made up his mind and said, "Senior, I want to go back to the Armament Guild headquarters to take a look." "Why are we going there?" Tsang raised his eyebrows and asked. "Ask them to move as soon as possible. I'm afraid that Wu Xian will find trouble with them." Wei Yi said honestly. "If that old woman really wants to find trouble with the Armament Guild headquarters, with your strength, what's the use of going back? I won't stop you if you want to die, but you have to hand over the 3 phoenixes first." Azure reminded. "Wei Yimo, Senior, you're too unsympathetic." Seeing through Wei Yi's thoughts, Azure said with a disapproving expression, "Sympathy is not worth much." Bad guy. Peeking at his thoughts. "Thanks, do you really need me to peek at your thoughts? I really don't know how you've been hiding for so many years. That little bitch, Rhyme, has never found you. You're really too stupid." Azure continued. This time, Wei Yi didn't dare to let his thoughts run wild. If he knew what he was thinking, how could he live? "Senior, give me some face and don't strike me down." Taking a deep breath, the depressed Wei Yi begged. "All right. I won't agitate you since you look so pitiful. However, it's really useless for you to go to the Armament Guild headquarters at this time. If that old woman, Wu Yan, wants to destroy the Armament Guild headquarters, you'll just be a meat bun hitting a dog even if you go. Or is it that you've been hiding from that bitch for so many years just to be a meat bun in the end?" Azure blinked his black diamond eyes and asked with a smirk. Could she not call him a meat bun? He was a reverent god after all. Please respect the strong. Hearing Azure say this about him, Wei Yi couldn't help but feel angry again. However, just as he thought this, he immediately put away all his thoughts and didn't dare to let his imagination run wild, otherwise. That old hag welcomes god-tier meat buns the most. Your blood will definitely be her best food. As expected, Azure continued to attack. "Senior, can you help me?" Wei Yi, who wanted to cry but had no tears, knew that the strength of the rabbit in front of him was unfathomable, so he asked for help. "How do you want me to help you, little meat bun?" Azure blinked innocently. He was not called Bun Hit Dog. Wei Yi silently cried, but still said, "I know that Senior's strength is powerful and you're not afraid of the miasma, so I would like to ask Senior to protect the Armament Guild headquarters." "You want to hug my thigh?" Azure asked. Yes, yes." Wei Yi hurriedly nodded. He knew that Sung was strong, so if he didn't hug him now, when would he? "Not everyone can hug my thigh." Seeing this, Azure said proudly. "Senior, let the Craftsman's Guild hold on to your thigh. In the future, if you want to refine a divine artifact, you can do it. You don't need to spend any money, and all the craftsmen are at your command. How cost-effective is this? Don't you agree?" Wei Yi hurriedly spoke of the benefits, but Sung frowned as he listened. "Your sister." It was an artifact spirit, and the god-protecting pagoda was an innate chaotic-level divine artifact. Did it need other divine artifacts? So in its eyes, the Craftsman's Guild was really of little value, but a certain person was not aware of it and thought that the Craftsman's Guild was so high and mighty. I don't need to forge, Azure said in disdain. It was a tool. A top-grade divine artifact. Senior, although you're a beast, with a weapon, you won't have to use your claws to scratch people. It's easier this way. Wei Yi spared no effort to continue to tempt him, and at the same time, he became stubborn, making Azure agree no matter what. I'm not afraid of wasting my claws. Azure felt that he had suffered a loss. Senior, Jian Tsung's words didn't work. Wei Yi could only put down his pride and drag out his voice to beg. Sure enough, Azure was frightened by Wei Yi's voice. He uncomfortably shook his fur, then slapped Wei Yi's head with his paw and roared, "Speak properly, or I'll hand you over to the mist bitch." Wei Yi, who had been beaten until his eyes were filled with stars, looked pitifully at Tsung, feeling extremely wronged. At this moment, he no longer had the wild and cool demeanor he had when he met Lin Ruoxue and the others. He only wanted to hug their thighs and seek protection. Seeing him like this, Tsung almost went crazy and wanted to melt it down to make more. However, after thinking about it, it was not bad to get Nyo a Weapon Master Guild to play with, it was better than letting it fall into the hands of the rippling fog bitch, so in the next second, it agreed. Seeing that Azure had finally agreed, Wei Yi was moved to tears. Woo! It really wasn't easy, he had wasted his time acting coquettishly and acting cute, hard work paid off. Senior, thank you. Wei Yi said excitedly. Chapter 2942, The Twins, 7, Don't thank me too early. I'm telling you, what's mine is Nyo's. So, even though I'm protecting your Armament Guild headquarters, it still belongs to Nyo. In the future, all of you have to listen to her. Azure warned. Understood. Wei Yi nodded. Suddenly, he felt envious, jealous, and hateful towards Lin Ruoxue. How blissful would it be to have such a big thigh to hug? That's right, that little girl said that she was Master Ye's disciple, could it be true? Filled with doubt, Guard Wing looked at Azure, his face filled with questions. Nyo is indeed the disciple of Dummy Yu. Seeing the situation, Tsung said truthfully. It seems like I'm the one with the heart of a vile person. Wei Yi said, somewhat embarrassed. It's good that you know. However, we're all magnanimous and won't hold it against you. Azure said magnanimously. As he spoke, he teleported with the Guardian Wing. It only put down Guardian Wing when it arrived at the Blacksmith Guild headquarters. This also made Wei Yi let out a long sigh of relief. Otherwise, if the weapon craftsman saw him being carried like this, it would damage his image. After entering the Craftsman's Guild headquarters, the first thing Wei Yi did was to look for the guild master. However, he was informed by the waiter that the guild master was in seclusion. Tell your guild leader to come out quickly, or he'll smash the Armament Guild headquarters. Hearing this, Azure immediately roared. Senior, calm down. You can't smash this place. Hearing Tsung's words, Wei Yi was afraid. Was this person addicted to smashing other people's houses? Why do you always like to cause trouble? Aren't you in closed-door cultivation? I just want to get that president out. Azure said innocently. I have an idea, there's no need to trouble Senior. Said Wei Yi, trying to please him. Then you do it, this lord's patience is limited. Tsung waved his little paw and found a place to sit down. Wei Yi wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and showed a token to the servant. Unfortunately, the servant did not recognize the token. In the Guardian Wing, he could only say helplessly. What's wrong with the Guardian Wing? The waiter asked in confusion. Don't you know that the first guild master of the Craftsman Guild was called Guardian Wing? Wei Yi asked, almost making the waiter go crazy. So what? Does it have anything to do with you? Don't think that just because you have the same name as our founding president, you have special privileges in the Armament Guild headquarters. Remember, this is the Armament Guild headquarters. The waiter said proudly. Wei Yi was dumbfounded. Azure couldn't help but cover his mouth with his little paws and laugh. Glancing at Sung's reserved smile, Wei Yi was depressed. Senior, if you want to laugh, laugh. There's no need to be embarrassed. Wei Yi sighed. Hee hee. Didn't I tell you to smash it? Azure laughed evilly, clearly rejoicing in his misfortune. Daring to smash the Armament Guild headquarters, you're quite bold. Seeing this man and beast acting as if he didn't exist, the waiter's anger surged to his head. I've even smashed the Divine Lord's estate, what's the Armament Guild? Azure said disapprovingly. What big words. At this moment, an angry voice interrupted. Thanks, and who are you? I'm an honorary elder of the Armament Guild headquarters. You can call me Eldering. The one who spoke was a middle-aged man who was currently walking down the stairs. He was not very strong, only a god king. However, to be able to become an honorary elder of the Craftsmen's Guild, Wei Yi was clear that this person definitely had talent in forging. Afraid that Song Zhen would smash the Blacksmith Guild headquarters in a fit of anger, Wei Yi went up and grabbed his collar, ordering, "Tell the Armament Guild headquarters manager to come out, I have important matters to attend to." You're ordering me? Eldering blinked her eyes and asked in disbelief. Hurry up, or you'll have to bear the consequences. Wei Yi threatened, and released a trace of pressure. Instantly, Elder Ying's little face turned pale and she scrambled up the stairs. The waiter was also so scared that his little body kept trembling. In fact, he also wanted to run, but his legs were weak. Who dares to come to the Craftsmen's Guild headquarters and cause trouble? Not long after, a group of weapon craftsmen ran down from upstairs with all kinds of weapons in their hands. I want to see the president. Seeing this, Guard Wing repeated. Ah. The president is in seclusion. May I know who you are? When the leader saw Guardian Wing in person, he immediately changed his attitude. This person gave him the feeling that he was very strong. As a non-combat guild, he really didn't want to make an enemy out of a stranger. What about the vice president? Wei Yi asked again. Little guy, the two vice presidents here are with my girl. Sung laughed before the other party could reply. Wei Emo, so he had come here for nothing. Who's your girl? Our vice leader is in Demon City. The leader of the group asked in surprise. Could it be that something had happened to the two vice presidents? But why didn't they receive any news at all? My girl is Leng Ruoxue. Azure said arrogantly with a proud face. Arg. So it was Miss Ling's beastie. It was a misunderstanding. We didn't know your identity, please don't take it to heart. Seeing Sung mention Leng Ruoxue's name, the leader's attitude immediately took a 180-degree turn. He treated Sung even better than before. Seeing this, Green proudly gave Wei Yi a provocative look, his black eyes red as he wrote, Look, my girl's name is better than yours, right? Facing Sung's smugness, Wei Yi could only feel depressed, because he couldn't deny that the girl's name was better than his. Because even if he said the two words, Wei Yi, people would think that they had the same name. I don't blame you. Who's the one in charge of the Armament Guild headquarters now? Azure asked, showing his magnanimity. That's me. I'm the fifth elder of the Armament Guild headquarters. That person took the initiative to say. Don't you know him? Pointing at Wei Yi, Azure asked with a smirk. Hearing this, the fifth elder carefully sized up the guard division, but in the end, he still shook his head. He looks familiar, but I can't remember where I've seen him before. He's the Guardian Wing, the first president of the Craftsmen's Guild. Sung solved the mystery. What? Hearing this, the fifth elder's face paled. He continued to stare at the Guardian Wing in disbelief. To be honest, he had only heard of the name of the Guardian Wing and had never seen it in person. However, he had seen the image of the founding president once, and the man in front of him gave him a sense of déjà vu. But he couldn't just randomly call himself the president. Even though he believed that Leng Ruoxue's beastie would not lie to them, he still had to verify it. May I ask if your excellency has any proof? the fifth elder asked after he had examined her. Hearing this, Azure couldn't help but laugh madly. He pointed at Wei Yi and said, "Little guy, they want evidence just like you. Really, if you're not family, you'll join the same family." Wei Yi's face darkened, but he still took out the token from before and showed it to the fifth elder. Seeing the token, the fifth elder was instantly excited. This was the personal token of the first president. Chapter 2943, The Twins, 8, President. After confirming, the fifth elder's eyes were filled with tears as he choked. "You admit it just like that? Aren't you going to confirm it?" Sung reminded. "Senior, what do you mean? Was he afraid that the world would not be in chaos?" Wei Yi looked at Sung with a face full of hidden bitterness. "There's no need to confirm. He's definitely our guild leader," the fifth elder said with certainty. He believed that Len Ruox's beastie would not lie to him. After all, his relationship with the Armament Guild headquarters was not ordinary. "Fifth elder, I have an important matter to discuss with your current president. Please ask him to come out of seclusion." Guard Wing, whose identity had finally been confirmed, said cautiously. "All right. President, please wait a moment," the fifth elder said respectfully. Finished speaking, the fifth elder personally went to handle this matter, while Wei Yi and Azure were also invited into the VIP room. Sitting on the chair in the VIP room, Wei Yi looked at Sung with a puzzled expression. "What's wrong?" Cold asked as he felt Guard Wing's gaze. "Why didn't they suspect anything when you said you were Len Ruox's beastie?" Regarding this question, Wei Yi had been thinking for a while, but he couldn't figure it out. "Character. Do you understand?" Azure said smugly, then sprawled on the table. These words caused Wei Yi to feel a sense of melancholy. "President." Suddenly, a whirlwind rushed in from the outside and headed straight for the Guardian Wing. Guard Wing, who wasn't prepared at all, was thrown to the ground. "Damn it, get up." Wei Yi's face darkened as he angrily glared at the person on top of him. "Guild leader, I'm so excited," a certain man said with an embarrassed expression. He was the Armament Guild's current president, Xueqi. "I have something important to discuss with you." Wei Yi nodded his head in understanding and said straightforwardly. "Please speak, President," Xueqi said, a little like a lackey. Although it was not the time to reminisce, Wei Yi still explained the cause and effect of his disappearance to Xueqi and several elders who had followed him. He also emphasized that Wu Ice might attack the Craftsmen's Guild. When Xueqi and the other elders heard this, they were at a loss. Without Wei Yi even mentioning Tsang, Xueqi, and the other elders all turned their eyes to Tsang. In the entire God world, Len Ruoxue was the only one who dared to go against Wu Cheng. "In the future, the Craftsmen's Guild will be under my protection." Seeing this, Cold waved his claws and said very arrogantly. "Thank you, this beast race senior." "Thank you, Miss Lang." Xueqi and the others quickly expressed their thanks. Wei Yi was depressed that they were acting like lackeys. From the looks of it, other than him who did not know Len Ruoxue, everyone else knew her. More importantly, that little girl's position in the divine realm seemed to be quite high. Thanks originally, he had thought that he would have to spend a lot of effort to convince the always proud Armament Guild headquarters to be willing to rely on the protection of others. Unexpectedly, it was completely different from what he had imagined in advance. Without even letting him speak any nonsense, this group of people from the Armament Guild headquarters had spontaneously found a thigh to hug. Such a fact made him, the founding president of the Armament Guild headquarters, feel no sense of accomplishment. But now that things had come to this, everyone was happy. He could finally be at ease. Unfortunately, he didn't feel at ease for long. In order to show his protection, Tsang directly injected his divine power into his voice and shouted at the top of his voice, "Ripple Mist bitch, the Armament Guild headquarters is mine now. I dare you to touch it." These powerful words instantly spread throughout the entire divine realm. Immediately, cold sweat appeared on the foreheads of Wei Yi and the others. Was this a provocation? However, in a short period of time, they probably wouldn't know whether this was a provocation or not. After hearing Tsang's words, Fog Eyes chose to ignore it. Right now, healing was the most important thing. She didn't have time for the weaponsmith's quarter. In her eyes, the Wei Yi would be in her pocket sooner or later, so she wasn't in a hurry. After Azure had taken Guardian Wing to settle the issue of ownership of the Weapon Masters Guild, he had brought Guardian Wing around the Divine Realm before returning to the abandoned land. Although Guard Wing had protested countless times that Azure shouldn't take him away, it was a pity that he was completely ignored. Seeing Wei Yi return home, Leng Ruoxue and the others quickly looked him up and down. When they saw that he was completely unharmed, they instantly felt relieved. After all, he was the Great Elder's master in name, and the Great Elder would feel heartache if he was hurt. This time, there was no need for Leng Ruoxue and the others to waste their breath. Wei Yi directly said, "I've hidden the 3 phoenixes." Leng Ruoxue didn't know what Azure had done to change Wei Yi's attitude, but the difference was too great. She couldn't believe it. "Senior Tsang is my thigh now." Wei Yi saw Leng Ruoxue's face full of question marks and took the initiative to explain to her. Leng Ruoxue and the others were silent. Did this mean that Wei Yi was clinging on to Shang Tsang's thigh? No wonder he was so obedient. "Girl, don't be too touched." Hearing this, Tsang's face was begging for a caress. Leng Ruoxue did as it wished and touched Tsang's fur. Tsang closed its eyes in happiness and lay in Leng Ruoxue's arms. Seeing this rabbit acting so coquettishly, Wei Yi couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. This was the rabbit that had kidnapped him? Why was he so gentle towards Leng Ruoxue, but so simple and rough towards her? In fact, Wei Yi was too embarrassed to tell everyone that after Tsang took him away, he beat him up before taking him to the immortal realm. Of course, they also went to the Imperial City. When they arrived, a certain rabbit showed his divine might and directly collapsed the walls of the Imperial City. As expected, they also saw Fog Eyes in the Imperial City. He had personally witnessed the scolding battle between Leng Ruoxue's rabbit and Fog Phoenix. He had also witnessed how Fog Phoenix was so infuriated by a certain rabbit that her blood vessels almost burst. In the rabbit's words, "Didn't you want evidence? It'll bring you directly to the Ripple Mist. After finding trouble with Rime Ice, it'll let you see my girl's reputation in the Divine Realm." As expected, Wei Yi's vision started to change and he gave in. This rabbit was too terrifying. He couldn't afford to offend it. More importantly, the Armament Guild headquarters still needed their protection. Sob. Thinking about what had happened these past few days, those were all tears. "Now, are you willing to tell me where the 3 phoenixes are?" Leng Ruoxue could feel that Wei Yi had been through a lot these past few days, so she couldn't help but ask in a gentle voice. "N." Wei Yi nodded his head vigorously. Could he not tell? He had already seen the evidence, and he had also hugged a certain rabbit's thigh. If he didn't say anything, that rabbit would probably go crazy. At that time, wouldn't he be the unlucky one? After that, Wei Yi brought Leng Ruoxue and the others to the backyard and opened one of the doors. He then said, "Come in with me." Upon entering the room, Leng Ruoxue and the rest realized that it was an extremely ordinary room. Other than an old bed, there was no other furniture in the room. Naturally, there were no signs of the 3 phoenixes. However, Leng Ruoxue and the rest did not say much. They only followed Wei Yi with calm expressions. Seeing this, the more Guardwing felt that his previous suspicion had been unnecessary. Chapter 2944, The Twins, 9. In reality, he didn't want that to happen either. However, it had been too long since he had moved around the Divine World, and Fog Eyes had been searching for his whereabouts all this time. Thus, he had to be on guard. After opening a wall and revealing a secret passage, he brought Leng Ruoxue and the rest in. After walking for an unknown amount of time, Leng Ruoxue and the rest finally saw a ray of light. They then realized that this secret tunnel led to a mountain because they were already in an unknown mountain. In the next second, they were surrounded by hundreds of armed men in gray. Our own people. Wei Yi took out a token and showed it to the other. Seeing this, the other party immediately put away his weapon and looked at Guard Wing with a respectful expression. He hesitated and said, "You're the boss." "What, you don't even recognize me?" Wei Yi sighed helplessly. "And no, it's not that. It's just that your face is different," a gray-robed man said carefully. "I've been detoxified," Wei Yi explained. When the gray-clothed people heard this, they immediately cheered and crowded around the guard division as they walked to the front. Leng Ruoxue and the rest pretended to be invisible and followed behind them silently. Knowing that they had been brought here by the Guardian Wing, the gray-clothed men were very polite to them after confirming their identities. The mountain path was rather rugged. Leng Ruoxue and the rest followed behind Wei Yi and the rest for a long time before they reached the peak. At the top of the mountain, there was a spacious three-story building built against the mountain. Leng Ruoxue could tell with a single glance that it was also a house. "Little girl, this is my base camp. I've placed the 3 phoenixes here." After entering the courtyard, Wei Yi turned around and said to Leng Ruoxue, "Master, you're back." At the same time, a young man quickly came to Wei Yi's side and shouted with excitement. "This is my disciple, Meng Xiao." Wei Yi introduced. "The previous president of the Craftsmen's Guild?" Leng Ruoxue said. "Eh? You recognize me?" Meng Xiao asked in surprise. "I don't recognize you." Leng Ruoxue replied honestly. "Ah." Meng Xiao was depressed. She couldn't recognize him, but she could still tell his identity. "I recognize the first elder and the 2 vice presidents of the Craftsmen's Guild." Leng Ruoxue smiled. "I see." Meng Xiao understood. At this moment, Leng Ruoxue moved the head elder of the Craftsmen's Guild out. Lu Yu and Mo Yen were with him. As soon as Mo Yen came out, he was also not used to it. All these years, he had been staying in Shui Er's space with his disciple, almost never leaving the house, so he had no idea how he had been moved out. However, before he could ask the question in his heart, he saw Wei Yi and Meng Xiao standing not far away from the corner of his eye. He immediately became excited. "President!" Mo Yen shouted, and then excitedly pounced on the 2. He was more familiar with Meng Xiao, but he was not as unfamiliar with Wei Yi as the others in the Craftsmen's Guild. After all, Wei Yi was a godlike figure in the hearts of the craftsmen of this generation. Mo Yen excitedly threw himself in front of Meng Xiao and Wei Yi, choking with sobs. At this moment, Lu Yu and the Great Elder also walked over, and the few of them hugged each other and cried. Seeing this, Leng Ruoxue and the others automatically made way for them while they hid in another corner of the courtyard. "Little girl, do you still remember me?" Suddenly, a slightly flirtatious voice rang in Leng Ruoxue's ears. Thanks. Leng Ruoxue turned around and saw that the person who spoke was a young man. The man's clothes were unusually bright, like a peacock fighting for beauty. Upon seeing this person, Leng Ruoxue frowned before looking at the demon. "You are Xiao Fan from Black Fog Cliff?" The demon revealed the man's identity. Xiao Fan was excited when he saw that he had been recognized. He immediately ran to the demon and said, "Not bad, you still remember me. You're not like a certain heartless person who had long forgotten about me." Hearing this, Leng Ruoxue and the rest had goosebumps all over their bodies. However, his words had successfully attracted the attention of Uncle Long and the rest towards Leng Ruoxue. Needless to say, the heartless person this person was referring to was definitely Shui Er. As for Leng Ruoxue, after the cold chill, she acted as if she had not heard Xiao Fan's words and said calmly, "Your boss can't leave now. Take us to see the 3 phoenixes." "Little girl, it's fine if you pretend not to know me, but you still want me to run errands for you?" Xiao Fan pointed at Leng Ruoxue and said. "Do you want me to find it myself?" "Oh. If I were to look for it myself, I can't guarantee what this place would look like." Leng Ruoxue threatened. "I'm scared of you, okay? I'll take you there." Sighing, Xiao Fan said in a sullen tone. "Then stop talking nonsense. Leng Ruoxue urged, forcing Xiao Fan to swallow back his unspoken complaints. Xiao Fan, who had resigned himself to his fate, led the way in front, but his heart was beating fast. This little girl's aura was much stronger than when they met her in the Haotian continent. At that time, Leng Ruoxue was just a little kid in their eyes, but now he was full of tears. After leading Leng Ruoxue and the others to the backyard, Xiao Fan pointed to a courtyard and said, "It's there, you guys go." Leng Ruoxue nodded and brought the demon and the rest to the courtyard. There were only 2 rooms in the small courtyard. Leng Ruoxue pushed open one of the rooms, and it just so happened that her 2 old phoenixes were living inside. At this moment, the 2 old phoenixes were lying side by side on the bed, unconscious. Leng Ruoxue examined their injuries and discovered that they were only in a deep sleep due to their injuries. Their lives were not in danger, so she was relieved. Not long after he took out 2 supreme-grade healing pills and fed them to the 2 old phoenixes, the 2 old phoenixes slowly woke up. As soon as they woke up, Feng Hua and Feng Miao were both a little confused. After being stunned for a while, the 2 of them touched each other and said in unison, "Have we recovered from our injuries?" The moment the 2 of them woke up, their consciousness was still at the moment when they were injured. Now that they saw that the 2 of them had no injuries at all, they were quite surprised. Who had saved them? The 2 of them looked at each other, their eyes still filled with confusion. They were obviously slow to react, so they did not realize that they were being watched. What a good gay friend. Uncle Long Sai woke up the 2 of them from their daze. "Arg! Who are you?" Feng Hua and Feng Miao raised their heads and saw that there were a few more people in the room, and they were immediately shocked. "You don't even recognize your master?" Uncle Long pointed at Leng Ruoxue and asked. "Master?" Feng Hua asked carefully. He could sense that his master was very close to him, but was this ugly woman in front of him really his master? The Phoenix Fire didn't dare to recognize it. It would be so embarrassing if he recognized the wrong master. Old Fire. Sighing softly, Leng Ruoxue looked at Old Fire's silly expression and could only speak on her own. Chapter 2945, The Twins, 10. Hearing that the voice belonged to the owner, Old Fire became excited. "Master! Woo!" Old Fire thought that he would never see you again. "But why did you change again? Is he disfigured?" Feng Hua couldn't help but guess. "I've changed my appearance." Leng Ruoxue gritted her teeth. Could this old phoenix not be so out of line? When they first met, he was still normal. "Oh! Master, why do you change your appearance every time?" Feng Hua asked with great curiosity. Was this important? Leng Ruoxue couldn't understand why Old Fire would be so concerned about this. Ice Spirit's reaction was more direct. He had already slapped Old Fire's head, causing Old Fire to grimace in pain. "Who are you? What right do you have to hit me?" The Phoenix Flame was furious. "Am Ice Spirit? I'm beating you up on behalf of Feng Wu." Ice Spirit roared. "Ice Spirit? Which Ice Spirit?" Feng Hua couldn't help but ask. He only knew of one Ice Spirit, and that was the Qilin clan leader. This person couldn't be him, right? Qilin clan's Ice Soul. Ice Spirit said honestly. When Feng Hua and Feng Miao heard this, they were instantly dumbfounded. The Ice Soul of the Qilin clan? Wasn't that the Qilin clan's patriarch? Master, he really is. The Phoenix Flame couldn't believe it and turned to ask its master. He believed his master more. Leng Ruoxue nodded. The Phoenix Fire was at a loss. Senior Ice Soul. Feng Hua said in a low voice. He was so scared that he didn't dare to raise his head. Okay, don't be so out of line. Ice Spirit reminded. I know. Yes, Feng Hua replied, then looked at Leng Ruoxue with a wronged expression. Master. How did you manage to bring this dangerous item? With him around, how are we beasties supposed to live? The Ice Spirit was undoubtedly giving Feng Hua and Feng Miao a lot of pressure. After all, the ice spirit was not only powerful, but also had a high status in the beast clan. In front of the ice spirit, who was the most senior beast in the beast clan, the two of them were like children. They were at a loss when facing the ice spirit. Besides, they didn't know why the ice spirit was with its master. Most of the rumors in the divinity said that Senior Ice Soul was in closed-door cultivation, and some said that he was injured and unconscious. But now it seemed that Senior Ice Soul was in good condition. At least, he was much stronger than the king of their Phoenix clan. Isn't there another Phoenix? Ice Spirit reminded. Arg! Little Six. With Ice Spirit's reminder, the two of them suddenly realized that they had forgotten about the sixth elder. They quickly stood up and ran outside. Leng Ruoxue and the rest sat calmly. Very quickly, Feng Hua and Feng Miao turned back. Feng Hua even said with tears in his eyes, "Master, where is little Six?" "Woo-woo, idiot." Ice Spirit cursed, then stood up and walked out. Leng Ruoxue shook her head in disappointment and walked out. The demon and the rest followed him one by one. Seeing this, Feng Hua and Feng Miao were even more confused. However, they still followed Leng Ruoxue and the rest with determination. Following him to the next room, the two of them saw the unconscious sixth elder lying on the bed. With a swoosh, they rushed to the bed and wailed, "Little Six, you died a terrible death." Thanks. Black lines slid down the foreheads of Leng Ruoxue and the others. It seemed that going offline was also contagious. Seeing Feng Hua and Feng Miao lying on the bed of the sixth elder of the Feng clan, crying their hearts out, Leng Ruoxue was a little flustered. In the end, she could no longer bear it and shouted, "Why are you crying? Who said she's dead?" "Ah. He didn't die. Then why is there no aura at all?" Feng Hua asked in a daze. "Her injuries are more serious than yours, and she's in a deep sleep. However, if you continue to cry, she might really lose her life." Leng Ruoxue gritted her teeth. "Master, please save her." When Feng Miao heard this, she immediately pleaded nervously. "Get out of my way." Leng Ruoxue was going crazy. "Yes." The two of them moved in an orderly manner and immediately made room for the bed. Leng Ruoxue also took out a pill and fed it to sixth elder. However, the sixth elder's injuries were more severe than Feng Hua and Feng Miao's, so he didn't wake up as quickly as they did. Feng Hua and Feng Wan watched the sixth elder eat the pill without blinking. After a while, the sixth elder finally opened his eyes, and the two of them let out a long sigh of relief. "Little Six, we're safe." After the sixth elder woke up, Feng Hua and Feng Miao said in unison, afraid that she would be worried. "Did Qing'er manage to escape?" The sixth elder, whose body was still very weak, asked. This question obviously stunned Feng Hua and Feng Miao. They didn't know. "Qing'er is already in Demon City," Leng Ruoxue replied for the two of them. "Little Six, you can rest assured. Qing'er is in Demon City." Hearing their master's words, Feng Hua and Feng Miao finally relaxed. Although they also loved Qing'er, they couldn't compare to the sixth elder. Therefore, they really didn't dare to imagine how sad little Six would be if something happened to Qing'er. But now, everyone was fine. "Old Fire, who are they?" The sixth elder couldn't help but ask when he saw the stranger in front of him. "She's my master," Phoenix Flame said excitedly. "Leng Ruoxue?" The sixth elder said hesitantly. "It's me." Leng Ruoxue nodded. "Miss Leng, thank you for saving us." The sixth elder said gratefully. "I just found you. I wasn't the one who helped you before." Leng Ruoxue replied honestly. The three old phoenixes looked at each other when they heard this. "The one who saved you was the previous president of the Armament Guild. However, you should rest first. Even if I want to thank them, there's no rush." Leng Ruoxue smiled as she saw through their thoughts. The three of them felt much more at ease after hearing this. After resting for 2 days, the three of them personally expressed their gratitude to the Guardian Wing. At this time, Wei Yi and the others had finished reminiscing, and everyone was somewhat excited. After Xiao Fan found out about Leng Ruoxia's past, he would appear in front of her from time to time in order to get to know her. It was a pity that Leng Ruoxia continued to ignore him. Xiao Fan, who refused to give up, was stopped by the demon when he went to look for Leng Ruoxia again. "What do you want?" The demon dragged Xiao Fan to a corner and questioned him. "Old friends, we're catching up. Don't be so unfriendly." Xiao Fan saw the demon's unfriendly expression and quickly lowered his head. "Who's your old friend?" The demon raised his eyebrows and said in disdain. He had not forgotten that when he had first thought of Black Fog Cliff, this group of people had given him and the others a difficult problem. Although it was a mission, if it was not for Shuai'er's ability in alchemy and the fact that she had managed to refine a high-grade divine antidote, they would have probably been handed over there. "Don't be like this." Xiao Fan was helpless. Why was it so difficult for him to cozy up to someone? To be honest, he never thought that Leng Ruoxia would be able to grow to such an extent in less than 100 years. After hearing about Leng Ruoxia from the first elder and the rest, his respect for her was like a torrential river that flowed endlessly. He did not hesitate to hug her thigh. Unfortunately, she would not let him hug her thigh. Chapter 2946, The Twins, 11, This Won't Do. Xiao Fan's will was firm, and he would not admit defeat easily. "Then what do you want?" The demon laughed evilly. "I want to hug your thigh." Xiao Fan said directly. "Aren't you two already hugging?" The demon reminded him. "Oh right, he seemed to be hugging that damn cat. That was carried by the city lord, I want to carry him alone." Xiao Fan laughed. "So you want to replace Wei Yi?" The demon purposely explained to Xiao Fan. "Don't wrong me. I just feel that we're old friends, and we should take care of each other." Xiao Fan looked at the demon and said. "That sounds reasonable." The demon nodded. "That makes sense, right?" Xiao Fan was pleased. "Yes, but so what? You'd better stay away from Shuai'er. If you continue to pester her, don't blame me for being impolite." The demon threatened. After saying this, he turned around and left, leaving the dumbfounded Xiao Fan standing there. Xiao Fan never dreamed that this guy would suddenly turn hostile. "You were threatened, right? You deserve it." At this time, a woman walked to Xiao Fan's side and gloated. "What do you know? I'm definitely going to cling on to Leng Ruoxia's thigh." Xiao Fan said, not willing to admit defeat. "Yes, I support you. I didn't expect her to grow so fast in just a few years." The woman looked at Xiao Fan and couldn't hide her surprise. The woman was Bai Shi. Back in the Hautian continent, they had been ordered to find all kinds of herbs to refine antidotes. At that time, Leng Ruoxia was just a little fellow with a good cultivation base, and she had even refined high-level antidotes for them. But now, Leng Ruoxia had become an existence that they looked up to. She could no longer look at Leng Ruoxia the way she used to, nor was she as heartless as Xiao Fan, who wanted to get close to her. AI. It was infuriating to compare people. Their improvement was limited, but Leng Ruoxia had long surpassed them by several streets. Sighing, she looked at Xiao Fan, who was still trying to cling on to Leng Ruoxia, and then she left. At the same time, Wei Yi, who was in the living room, was also talking to Leng Ruoxia about what had happened back then. Wei Yi sighed. Never in his wildest dreams would he have thought that he and Leng Ruoxia would have such a connection. The antidote pill that year was refined for him. However, the antidote pill was not of much help to him. Even so, he still had to thank Leng Ruoxia. When Leng Ruoxia heard this, she also felt that they were too full of themselves. "By the way, what's the use of the token they gave me?" Leng Ruoxia suddenly remembered that she still had an unused token in her bracelet storage. She could not help but ask curiously. Hee. Take that token. If we are fated to meet again, I can make you a supreme-grade divine weapon for free. Wei Yi explained, a little embarrassed. You mean I have to come to the city of abandoned ruins or find you for the token to work? Leng Ruoxue blinked her eyes and asked. Yes, I am. Wei Yi said, somewhat embarrassed. Thanks. Hearing the other party's affirmative answer, Leng Ruoxue gave Wei Yi a disdainful look. This guy, what he gave was simply an empty check. Who would come to the city of abandoned ruins? It was even more difficult to find where they lived than to go to the city of abandoned ruins. Fortunately, she had long forgotten about the token she had accidentally obtained that year, otherwise she would have been depressed to death. If there's a chance to see it, it's worth it. Wei Yi, who was despised by Leng Ruoxue to the point of being unable to show his face, argued in a low voice. All right then. Leng Ruoxue nodded. She didn't want to be caught up in this matter and took the initiative to change the topic. What's your next plan? Do you want to leave this place? No, don't you own this place now? Well, be safer here. Wei Yi shook his head. He was already used to living here and didn't want to easily change places. Even though this place belongs to me now, it may not be safe. After all, this is Wu Yan's territory. If she finds out that this place has changed owners, I'm afraid there will be trouble. So, are you really not considering leaving here? Leng Ruoxue tried to entice him. Don't scare me. I've been living in seclusion here for many years to avoid her. I'm already used to life here. Wei Yi still gave the same reason. Could it be that you feel that the more dangerous the place, the safer it is? Leng Ruoxue asked. How did you know? Wei Yi was surprised that Leng Ruoxue had guessed correctly. Isn't it obvious? By the way, I'm planning to craft an acquired chaos divine artifact. Are you interested in watching? Leng Ruoxue threw out another bait. The reason why she spared no effort in trying to abduct Wei Yi was because this guy had once received Master's true inheritance in the field of forging. According to Tsang's gossip, he still had Master's forging experience. Such a talent, of course she couldn't let him go. With him around, he might even be able to give her some inspiration. Hotian Chaos Divine Artifact. Hearing this, Wei Yi's eyes lit up. When Leng Ruoxue saw him, she knew that he must have heard of it. She nodded and said, Are you interested in participating? Even though you'll probably only be able to watch. We must watch. Wei Yi's eyes were shining, clearly very interested. Then you'll have to leave this place with me, Leng Ruoxue replied honestly. Can't you refine it here? Wei Yi said, somewhat conflicted. Demon City is my real home. I miss home. Leng Ruoxue said pitifully. In order to successfully abduct him, she had to pretend to be pitiful. Ah. What do you plan to do here? Wei Yi could not help but ask. This place. We can only leave it for now. Leng Ruoxue said after some thought. After all, she still needed this place. However, she wouldn't use this place as a base. After all, the environment here was too bad. All right. I'll go back with you, but I'll have to bring everyone here. Wei Yi requested. This was the power he had accumulated over the years. Although it was not very strong, it was these people who had accompanied him during his most difficult times, so no matter when or where, he would not leave these people and leave by himself. Sure, there are plenty of places in Demon City. Leng Ruoxue agreed. After that, the two of them discussed some details, and then Wei Yi left to inform his subordinates to move. Leng Ruoxue had also returned to her room. Not long after, Feng Hua and Feng Miao found Leng Ruoxue. The two of them looked at each other hesitatingly, neither of them willing to speak first. Seeing their reaction, Leng Ruoxue could only ask directly, What's wrong? Do you have something to say to me? Master, are we leaving this place? Feng Hua carefully asked. Yes. Leng Ruoxue nodded. Then the Phoenix King, Feng Hua only said 2 words and couldn't continue. He really wasn't suitable to ask this kind of thing. Chapter 2947, Twin, 12, You want to know when the Phoenix King will save you? The 6th Elder sent you here to ask, right? Leng Ruoxue asked with a faint smile. She only found the two old phoenix's coyness funny. As her beastie, he naturally could not hide his thoughts from her. Master, don't blame little Six. She's just too worried about Feng Wu, so she asked us to ask her. She didn't mean to rush you, so don't worry. Feng Miao was afraid that her master would be angry, so she quickly explained on behalf of the sixth elder. I understand. But, sixth elder, how can you be so sure that I can save the Phoenix King? Leng Ruoxue was a little confused. Where did the old phoenix get its confidence from? Master. In the entire divine realm, if even you are unable to save the Phoenix King, then no one would be able to save the Phoenix King. Feng Huo laughed and said. Hearing his words, Leng Ruoxue was speechless. So their confidence in her came from their flattery. However, the matters of the Phoenix King, the White Tiger King, and the Dragon Emperor really had to be brought forward on the agenda. He just didn't know if his current strength was enough to unseal the fog ice. When she thought of this, she felt sorry for the Mother Parasol Tree. After all, when she left the Phoenix tribe with the Mother Parasol Tree, she had said that she would try to save the Phoenix King within 10 years. However, she did not expect to use so much time for cultivation. Fortunately, after the Mother Parasol Tree entered the bracelet, its strength recovered quickly, and at the same time, it also bought a lot of time for the Phoenix King. Otherwise, she was afraid that she would really feel sorry for the Mother Parasol Tree and the Phoenix battle. Take me to the place where the Phoenix King was sealed. I'll take a look at the situation before making a decision. Leng Ruoxue said after some thought. Master, we know that place. We'll take you there. Phoenix Fire hurriedly said when he heard this. Leng Ruoxue nodded her head and informed the evildoer of evil and the rest. They decided to go with her. When he walked to the gate, he met Wei Yi again. When he asked, he also said that he wanted to go. Left with no choice, Leng Ruoxue could only bring along a large group of people. Under the guidance of Feng Huo, Feng Miao, and the sixth elder, they found the place where the Phoenix King was sealed with great familiarity. There was also a tall mountain there. After entering the cave, they soon arrived underground. The underground area was pitch black. Leng Ruoxue lit up a small flame, illuminating the entire secret passage. Master, we've searched for a long time before we found this place. Feng Huo answered Leng Ruoxue's questions as they walked. There's no one guarding this place? Leng Ruoxue asked. No, I didn't. That old woman is probably too confident in her formation, so she didn't send anyone to guard this place. This is a good opportunity for us. Phoenix Flame said excitedly. Don't be too happy yet. I believe that as long as someone dispels the formation or touches it, the mist will know. With her speed, she can definitely reach here in an instant. Hearing Phoenix Fire's words, Guardwing couldn't help but pour cold water on his head. As a weapon master, he was naturally well versed in array formations. According to what he knew, Wu Xian might not be proficient in alchemy and weapon refinement, but her attainments in array formations were unparalleled except for Suryu. This was also the main reason why he had to follow them. He was afraid that Leng Ruoxue and the others would activate the array formation without knowing the truth and alarm Wu Xian. At that time, no one could escape easily. Of course, that was unless Senior Tsang was willing to help. However, since he already knew Tsang's identity, he didn't have any hope of Tsang taking action. After all, as one of the older guys who had lived for a longer time in the divine realm, he knew more about certain things than others. Then what should we do? Hearing Wei Yi's words, Phoenix Flame was somewhat at a loss. At the same time, she was also somewhat glad that they had not touched that formation. Otherwise, if it was really like what Wei Yi said, wouldn't the three of them be seeking their own deaths? Thanks, we'll take one step at a time. Wei Yi sighed. Let's wait and see. Leng Ruoxue chimed in. The group continued to move forward. After walking for an unknown amount of time, they finally came to a relatively wide area. In front of them, there was a formation with a six-pointed star pattern that was spinning at a constant speed. They walked to the front of the formation. Other than Leng Ruoxue and Wei Yi, who were carefully observing the formation's operation pattern, the others could only stare with wide eyes at the commotion. The demon and the others were all formation blind. Shuer, do you see the red mark in the center of the formation? I'm guessing that it's definitely connected to the mist ripple. Wei Yi pointed at a part of the formation. Leng Ruoxue nodded. She could tell that this was the most advanced God-binding array. The God-binding array was the most advanced array, but the one before her was made from the heart's blood of the mist ripple array. It was even more powerful. Compared to the God-binding array she had broken through in the Haotian continent, the one that was imprisoning the Phoenix King was 100 times more difficult. And this kind of divine binding array was set up by the Ripple Mist Bitch with all her strength. Therefore, unless one's strength was equal to that of the Ripple Mist, it would be very difficult to break this array. At least, she was powerless now. Just as the guard wing had said, the slightest touch of this formation would alarm the Rime Ice. After explaining to the three old phoenixes, Leng Ruoxue and her group went to the place where the White Tiger King and Dragon Emperor were sealed. When they arrived, Leng Ruoxue helplessly realized that the situation was far more complicated than she had imagined. Because these three God-binding arrays actually resonated with each other, if someone wanted to undo one of the arrays, then the other two would have to do their best to assist and resist. In short, undoing one God-binding array was actually equivalent to undoing three arrays. In this case, the amount of mental energy consumed would be relatively higher. Leng Ruoxue was furious, but she was also impressed by Wu Ling's clever thinking. She really didn't know how that flower could have such a complicated mind. They actually thought of a cooperative God-binding array. Compared to the three races that were sealed, the Dark Knight race was much more fortunate. However, Leng Ruoxue was also clear that Wu Jing must have thought that no one in the Haotian continent could undo the God-binding formation, which was why she didn't make it so complicated. In addition, it was also because setting up such a God-binding array would definitely take a lot of effort. But no matter what Rime Ice had done had incited Leng Ruoxue's fighting spirit. At the same time, Leng Ruoxue had decided to cause some trouble for Rime Ripples. Wasn't she unable to undo the God-binding array now? Then she would make sure that Wu Xian would not be able to control this formation either. Actions spoke louder than words. When Leng Ruoxue revealed her intention to set up an array here, Uncle Long and the others were stunned. Shuer, what kind of formation do you want to set up? Uncle Long asked curiously. A defensive formation. I'm going to turn the three sealed lands and the city of abandoned ruins into iron walls so that she can't enter even if she wants to. Leng Ruoxue said through gritted teeth. Ah. Uncle Long didn't know what to say. He knew 6 things about formations, but he didn't know one. Therefore, he could not help Shuer. That's a good idea. If Wu Qin knew about it, he would definitely go crazy. Wei Yi heard this and agreed. Wei Yi, you assist me. Leng Ruoxue requested. Then, she took out Shuai Mo, who had been studying formations in the bracelet. Chapter 2948, Twin, 13. Where is this place? Shuai Mo couldn't help but ask after he came out and saw the dark place. The land where the 3 kings are sealed. Shuai Mo, I'm going to set up a defensive formation here. You and Wei Yi, come and help me. Leng Ruoxue said seriously. No problem, he said. The two of them nodded at the same time. Then, they saw Leng Ruoxue take out countless top-grade crystals of various colors. Shuai Mo was fine as he was used to Leng Ruoxue's wealth. Wei Yi, on the other hand, couldn't help but widen his eyes and look at Leng Ruoxue in disbelief. Don't tell him that they were going to use top-grade crystals to set up the formation. Although the higher the grade of the crystal, the more powerful the formation, but using so many top-grade crystals, wasn't it a bit too wasteful? In his view, high-grade Jingshi was enough. However, Leng Ruoxue had clearly made up her mind to use top-grade crystals. She continued to toss out crystals. In the end, Wei Yi was numb from watching. When he turned around and saw the calm faces of Uncle Long and the others, he realized that he had seen too little of the world. Sob. Tycoon, please be my mistress. He was really too rich. Wei Yi deeply felt that, compared to Leng Ruoxue, he had wasted his time all these years. In the end, the extremely indignant Wei Yi hugged the pile of premium crystal ores and drooled all over the ground. Then, he started to help Leng Ruoxue. The defense division's formation skills could not be compared to Shui Mos, so they could only act as their assistants. The main force in setting up the formation was naturally Leng Ruoxue and Shui Mo. The formation they were going to set up this time was quite large and they were going to use a lot of Jingshi. Moreover, all of them were top-grade Jingshi. Wei Yi's flesh hurt as he watched the top-grade Jingshi disappear into the formation. However, those Jingshi were not his, so the pain was in vain. It took about half a month to set up the 3 formations. Once she was done with the 3 formations, Leng Ruoxue turned her attention to the city of abandoned ruins. The area of the City of Desolation was larger, so it required more top-grade crystals. However, Leng Ruoxue did not care. After all, the City of Desolation now belonged to her, so it was necessary to protect it. Lu Fan was excited when he saw that Leng Ruoxue was going to set up an array in the City of Abandoned Ruins. Originally, he was worried that his former superior would come to find trouble with him. But now, with the defensive formation, the safety factor had doubled. This time, it took nearly 10 days to set up the defense formation for the City of Abandoned Ruins. After the formation was set up, no one was happier than Lu Fan. However, as soon as the formation was activated, Wu Qian, who was far away in Yu City, immediately felt that something was wrong. This was because her connection with her clone had been cut off. After a few more contacts, Wu Yan decisively left the Imperial City and went to the City of Abandoned Ruins to find out what was going on. One should know that Fog Phoenix originally had 3 clones. Leng Ruoxue had already killed 2 of them. This one in the City of Abandoned Ruins was definitely her last one. Of course, this one referred to her stronger clones. To put it bluntly, it was a clone that had matured. Therefore, he could not afford to lose any more. Thanks as for the 2 clones that she had split out later, they were still too weak and could not be counted on at all. As such, this clone was even more important. As for Leng Ruoxue, she would never have thought that even without touching the formation that sealed the 3 kings, she would still attract the attention of that despicable person from the Ripple Mist. Wu Jing's speed was extremely fast. Before Leng Ruoxue and the rest could notice, she had already arrived at the city gate of the City of Abandoned Ruins. Looking at the array that covered the sky of the City of Abandoned Ruins, Ripple of Fog was furious. Fuck. Who was it? Who had set up an array on her territory? At this moment, Wu Xian did not even connect the formation to Leng Ruoxue. Instead, she started to attack the defensive formation above the City of Abandoned Ruins in a very rough manner. She was burning with anger and really wanted to know who dared to mess with her, a divine master. Snatching food from her mouth was definitely an act of courting death. The moment she launched her attack, Leng Ruoxue and the others in the City Lord's mansion had already known. After seeing the fog through the light screen, Leng Ruoxue and the rest looked at each other in shock. Uncle Long even said what everyone was thinking, why is this old woman here? Blood Cherry Blossom. Leng Ruoxue said with certainty. At the same time, she felt a little regretful. How could she have forgotten about the spy? If it wasn't for the fear of alerting Wu Jing, she would have destroyed the flower directly. But now, she had still alerted the snake. When they heard that it was the Blood Cherry Blossom's doing, everyone immediately became furious and rushed into the secret chamber. Then, they glared at the Blood Cherry Blossom, who was on the verge of collapse from being tortured by the rabbits in the room, with fire-spitting eyes. The shriveled Blood Cherry Blossom, whose flowers and leaves had drooped down, suddenly saw so many people pouring into her residence. She first trembled, then choked with sobs and pleaded, "Take these rabbits away. Wu, I won't suck blood anymore, I'll be a vegetarian, okay? You were the one who informed the Ripple Mist bitch. Leng Ruoxue asked directly. The Divine Master is here? Blood Cherry Blossom asked cautiously upon hearing this. She's here. However, if you're the one who informed her to come and save you, I'm afraid she'll be disappointed. Because before she can save you, I will definitely destroy you first. Leng Ruoxue replied honestly. Hearing Leng Ruoxue's words, Shui Qinghua shuddered and hurriedly said, I didn't inform the God Lord. Really, please believe me. I didn't tell him. Wu, I'm very obedient, please don't accuse me, okay? The Blood Cherry Blossom wanted to cry but had no tears. Although it had done many bad things, it had become extremely obedient under the threat of these rabbits. Now, its only dream was to hope that these rabbits would disappear before its eyes. What Divine Master? Those were all fleeting clouds. Distant water can't quench present thirst, it's more reliable to save yourself. But now, it had clearly done nothing, yet it was being wronged. Sob. This was not how a prisoner of war should be treated. I really want to protest. The Blood Cherry Blossom's heart was filled with worry, and its flower head drooped down even more. Seeing how aggrieved it was, Leng Ruoxue felt a little sympathy for it and believed its words. After all, it had been so many days since Wu Qian had rushed over. It might not have been the Blood Cherry Blossom that had informed him. But if it wasn't him, then who was the one who told on him? In the city lord's mansion, from Lu Fan to the ordinary guards, they were all bound by Tsang's contract. Naturally, they couldn't tell on him. It was even more impossible for Uncle Long and the others. Unless there were still some spies of that slut in the city. Girl, it shouldn't be the one who said it. It doesn't dare. At this moment, Azure finally spoke some words of justice, causing Blood Cherry Blossom to be extremely touched. In fact, she even felt that this rabbit didn't seem as terrifying as before. Woo! At least it was a good rabbit with a bright heart and clear eyes. It should be because of the defensive formation. The Blood Cherry Blossom is in contact with Rhymice every day. After we finished setting up the defensive formation, the connection between the two of them was probably cut off. This naturally raised the suspicions of that bitch, and she was drawn here as well. Thinking about it, Tsang guessed. It had to be said that it was true. Even though this Blood Cherry Blossom clone had been reporting to Ripple Mist daily, ever since this place had been occupied by Leng Ruoxue and the others, and it had been threatened by a group of rabbits, its daily report had become a mere decoration. In addition, with Tsang's covetous eyes, it did not dare to ask for help from the Divine Master. It was afraid that it would be like what Leng Ruoxue had said, dying before the Divine Master could even arrive. If that was the case, it would be better to continue on like this. At least it would be able to keep its life. Chapter 2949, Twin, 14. It was because of this that it had not reported the situation in the City of Abandoned Relics truthfully for so many days. As a result, the fog lost control of this place completely. However, the defense formation had aroused the fog's suspicion. When she arrived here, she had already noticed that some changes had occurred in this place that were out of her control, which made her completely angry. Yes, yes. My connection with the Divine Master has indeed been cut off. Hearing Tsang's words, Blood Cherry nodded her head repeatedly. Why didn't you say so earlier? Did you do it on purpose? Leng Ruoxue squinted her beautiful eyes and continued to question him. No. It wasn't he. I just tried and found out that I couldn't contact the Divine Master. I didn't hide it on purpose. Please believe me. Blood Cherry Blossom said in an aggrieved and sullen voice. When Leng Ruoxue heard this, she looked deeply at the Blood Cherry Blossom for a while before warning, I'll believe you for now. Remember, your life is in our hands. We can decide your life and death at any time, and you won't be able to wait for the Ripple Mist bitch to save you. So don't play any tricks. I don't dare. I don't dare. I'm very obedient. I promise. The Blood Cherry Blossom said in an extremely spineless manner. Now that it knew of Leng Ruoxue's identity, it was absolutely obedient in front of her. This was because it knew that its two sisters had died at Leng Ruoxiu's hands. As such, how would it dare to play any more tricks? It wasn't like he was tired of living. Remember your words. After giving her warning, Leng Ruoxiu led the demon and the others out of the secret chamber. Once they left, Shui Qinghua finally heaved a sigh of relief. It was a pity that it didn't sweat. Otherwise, it would have wiped it away madly. Sob. Its life was really hanging by a thread just now. It had almost lost its life. However, even though Leng Ruoxiu and the rest had already left, there was still a rabbit that was instructed by Tsang to threaten, "Little flower, my boss said that if you don't listen, we'll eat you." As the rabbit spoke, it revealed its shiny, sharp front teeth, causing Shui cherry blossoms to shiver in fear. She hurriedly promised, "I promise to be obedient." That's more like it. The rabbit that had been warned said as it touched the blood cherry blossom petals with satisfaction. At this moment, Leng Ruoxiu and the rest had returned to the living room and were admiring Wu Cheng's violent actions through the light screen. At the same time, they were testing out the defensive formation's ability to withstand a beating. At this moment, Wu Chen was obviously a little crazy. One after another, divine power smashed onto the defensive array as if it was free, but the defensive array did not move at all. It could not even crack open a gap. Leng Ruoxiu was satisfied. The fog became more and more crazy. More divine power rained down on the defensive formation. At this moment, the defensive formation that had been unresponsive all this time suddenly burst out with a brilliant light. Then, a majestic divine power poured out of the defensive formation and hit Wu Chen. This divine power was the one that she had thrown out before. Now, it was returned to her without any waste. Wu Wan, who had never thought that the defensive formation in front of her would counterattack, took the hit. Immediately, blood spurted out of her mouth and fell to the ground. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, Wu Yan's anger surged up. He stared at the fire-breathing Shuang in the defensive array, wishing he could burn a hole in the defensive array in front of him. In the next second, ripple of mist disappeared. At the same time, a burst of cheers erupted in the living room of the city lord's mansion. "Thanks, this defensive formation is so powerful." It seemed to be silent, but it gave the fog ice a fatal blow in the end. Ice Soul was speechless. The more powerful you are, the more severe the injuries you'll suffer when you attack this defensive formation. Leng Ruoxiu answered with a smile. Poor Ripple Witch. Everyone present silently lit a candle for her, their sympathy for her was like a torrential river. Wu Ice's actions had also verified the effectiveness of the defensive formation. For a moment, Leng Ruoxiu and the rest were extremely satisfied with this. However, Wu Ling was not just depressed. After returning to her hall, she sat on her throne with her injuries and thought hard. In the end, no matter how she thought about it, she felt that the defensive array of the City of Abandoned Ruins was set up by Leng Ruoxiu. This fact also made her furious. More importantly, if it was really Leng Ruoxiu who did it, then they would be in deep trouble. The abandoned city might seem remote, but it was very important to her because it was one of the places where she grew her food. At the same time, it helped her earn a large amount of wealth every day. If Leng Ruoxiu took over the city, it would affect her greatly. This was also the last thing she wanted to see. However, even though she wanted to deny that Leng Ruoxiu was in the City of Abandoned Ruins, she could not convince herself. One must know that in the entire firmament, other than Leng Ruoxiu and her gang, no one else had the ability or the guts to oppose her. Moreover, it was enough to have Leng Ruoxiu, who was giving her a headache. She really did not want to cause any more trouble. If that was the case, she would have no way to deceive herself. Leng Ruoxiu. Damn it, why do you have to go against me? The anger in Wu Yan's heart roared. Her unstable state of mind directly aggravated her injuries. After summoning her trusted aide and giving her some instructions, the depressed ripple of fog went into seclusion to recuperate. After Leng Ruoxiu and the rest stayed in the City of Abandoned Ruins for a few more days, they decided to return home. Before returning home, Leng Ruoxiu was still worried about the blood cherry blossom. She felt that this fellow was like a time bomb. If one day it went crazy and started sucking blood again, the people in the city lord's residence would be in for a bad time. The city lord's mansion was now her property, so she was naturally unwilling to see any losses here. After she told everyone about her worries, everyone fell silent for a while. Then, Uncle Long said, "It's better to just kill him, why leave this scourge alive?" He didn't have a good impression of the blood cherry blossom at all, and he wouldn't forget how many outrageous things the previous 2 blood cherry blossoms had done. Therefore, he was definitely in favor of uprooting the weeds and eliminating the roots. In any case, Rhymice already knew about the abnormality here, so there was no need to keep the flower in case it alerted the enemy. "Girl, bring it back to Demon City. I'll handle it," Azure said with a smile. "All right." Leng Ruoxue was more than happy that Azure was willing to take over. Just like that, the fate of the blood cherry blossom was decided. When the blood cherry blossom learned that it was going to be taken away, it became flustered and kept begging for it to stay in the city of abandoned ruins. Unfortunately, no one accepted its suggestion. The blood cherry blossom seemed to know that it was not far from death if it left this place, and it was so listless that it could no longer raise its spirits. On the way back to Demon City, Azure teleported with a large group of people. In less than a month, they had returned to Demon City. When they arrived at the foot of the Demon City's mountain, Tsang immediately refused to be the coachman. The White Tiger Great Elder and the other beasts who had been guarding the foot of the mountain were in disbelief when they saw Lin Ruoxue's group of people. They finally confirmed it again and again, and finally proved that their eyes were not playing tricks on them. Their master had really returned. "Master!" The White Tiger First Elder choked with emotion and wanted to pounce on him, but Tsang kicked him away when he saw this. Chapter 2950, Twin, 15. After rolling a few times in the air, the White Tiger First Elder landed safely. He looked at Leng Ruoxue with an aggrieved expression. "Sob. I only wanted to show my affection to my master. Why do I have to treat such a cute little animal like this?" It was said that their master was especially tolerant towards cute beasts, so this large group of white tigers had always maintained their tiger bodies in order to have the opportunity to lie and act cute in front of their master. But now, this opportunity had been taken away by a rabbit. It was really too cruel. However, the Totoro, kitty, and rabbit were the 3 types of beasts that could not be provoked the most in the immortal realm now. Thus, even if he was abused, the White Tiger First Elder did not dare to say anything. The First Elder of the White Tiger clan looked at Leng Ruoxue with wronged expression and prayed in his heart. "Look at me. I'm such a tough white tiger." The White Tiger First Elder, who was very confident in his cute appearance, imitated the soft and weak little beast and continued to call out softly, "Master, you're back." Leng Ruoxue shuddered. After shaking off all the goosebumps on the ground, she said with a serious expression, "Great Elder White Tiger, you're really not suited to act childish. Besides, I'm not your master." After saying this, Leng Ruoxue walked around the white tigers blocking her way and went up the mountain. Uncle Long and the others, who were holding back their laughter, glanced at the White Tiger First Elder with sympathy and left as well. Only the guard wing took a few more glances at the White Tiger Great Elder, then shook his head and sighed. The morals of the world are getting worse by the day. Why has the White Tiger race declined to such a state? With that, he left as well, leaving behind the White Tiger First Elder, who had an awkward expression and was in a mess. At this moment, Mu Li had already seen through the light screen that Leng Ruoxue and the rest had returned safely. He personally came out to welcome them. "Welcome home," Mu Li said with a smile as he stood at the entrance of the Leng family's main residence. "Thank you. Is everything all right?" Leng Ruoxue asked with a smile. "It's all right," Mu Li said with a guilty conscience. "Girl, he's lying to you." He sharply sensed that something was wrong with Mu Li and directly exposed him. Hearing this, Mu Li couldn't help but roll her eyes. She looked at Leng Ruoxue innocently and didn't say anything. "What happened?" Leng Ruoxue asked indifferently. She obviously trusted Sung's judgment more. If you have something to say, then say it. The demon also roared. It's the Ning family. Master Ning didn't want me to tell you. Mu Li said helplessly. This wasn't what he wanted to say. He could only blame this rabbit for being too sharp and cunning. What's wrong with the Ning family? Did someone make Godfather angry again? Len Ruoxue guessed. No, I'm not. The Ning family has been captured by a group of black-clothed people, who should be the people of the Ripple Mist bitch. The other party has requested to use you to exchange for the Ning family. Seeing that he could no longer hide it, Mu Li naturally told her everything he knew. This was also the main reason why Master Ning had asked him to hide it from Len Ruoxue. Master Ning had said that if Shuai knew about it, she would definitely take a risk for him. Hence, he could not let Len Ruoxue know. You want me to exchange? Oh. The rhyme bitch is doing such a tasteless thing. Len Ruoxue truly felt that she had overestimated that old hag in the past. This was probably the real face of that wretched woman from the Ripple Mist. That old hag has never had class. Ice Soul pouted. Thanks, that's right. Uncle Long nodded in agreement. He and Ice Spirit agreed on this point. Shuai, what do you plan to do? Dongfang Yu asked worriedly. He was in a dilemma. On one hand, he didn't want Len Ruoxue to send a sheep into the tiger's mouth. On the other hand, he was worried about the Ning family. Of course, he was only worried about the Ning family because of Master Ning. The most important thing was that Master Ning was Shuai's godfather and had always loved Shuai. Now that the Ning family was in trouble, it would be unreasonable for him to stop Shuai from helping, but if he really let Shuai go, he would be worried that he would fall into the trap of fog. For a moment, he was so conflicted that he wanted to bang his head against the wall. Of course we're going to save them. Len Ruoxue confirmed. She then turned to Mu Li and asked, where is the Ning family being held? Master Ning, Dongfang Lin, and the others have already gone to a valley not far from the imperial city. I just don't know what the situation is like now. Mu Li reported truthfully. They all went? Then why are you still hiding it from me? Len Ruoxue was speechless. We didn't expect you to return so quickly. Oh right, the dragons, phoenixes and white tigers who were guarding the foot of the mountain also sent their beasts to help. Mu Li continued to report. No wonder I didn't see Qing at the foot of the mountain. Did that little phoenix go too? Len Ruoxue could not help but ask. Yes, I am. Mu Li nodded. I'll go find them. Len Ruoxue replied without hesitation. When the group of people who had followed Len Ruoxue back heard this, they immediately wanted to follow her. Len Ruoxue had just taken 2 steps when she stopped. She looked at Wei Yi and the rest and said, you guys stay here. On what basis? Little Shuai, I'm a reverent god after all, you can't look down on me like this. Hearing this, Wei Yi immediately protested. Their combat power is too low. They'll only be throwing meat buns at dogs if they go. Len Ruoxue said in disdain. Wei Yi and the others were in tears. He was so direct and didn't consider their feelings at all. Was this really a good thing? Mu Li, I'll leave Little Bun Hit Dog and the others to you. Most of them are blacksmiths. Arrange a base for them. Len Ruoxue ignored the resentful gazes of Wei Yi and the others and turned to instruct Mu Li, wait. I want to go with you. Let someone else arrange it for them. Mu Li requested. Are you sure? Len Ruoxue squinted her beautiful eyes and asked indifferently. Ah. I'll stay behind to protect them. Mu Li said fearfully, woo. You can't threaten me like this. Bad guy. After not seeing her for a few days, he realized that Len Ruoxue was getting worse and worse. Mu Li stayed behind, feeling aggrieved. She watched Len Ruoxue and the rest leave in a carefree manner. Her heart was filled with envy, jealousy, and hatred. Why? Why? He's always the one left behind to look after the house. Why was he always left behind? Was it really a good idea for a powerful Ming Zun realm expert like him to be treated as a house-guarding beast instead of being used on the edge of a blade? He felt that the ice spirit was more suitable for the house suppression beast. However, it was obvious that Leng Ruoxue did not think that way. Yu Sang turned around and looked at Wei Yi. Mu Li asked indifferently, "You're called Little Meat Bun?" "Your sister. You're the one who's called Little Meat Bun, your whole family is Little Meat Bun." Hearing this nickname, Wei Yi jumped and roared like a lit explosive. He was crying in his heart. Ever since Tsang called him Little Bun, Leng Ruoxue and the others had heard it. Now, those bad guys would call him Little Bun whenever they bullied him. Every time he heard this name, he wanted to go crazy. However, it was obvious that in front of Leng Ruoxue and the others, he was a vulnerable group who didn't care about his identity as a weapon refiner. Woo! He was begging for some kind person to help him. "Our Nether Empress doesn't call you that. You dare to deny it?" Mu Li's eyes widened as he asked in disbelief. Chapter 2951, Twin, 16, Who is the Nether Empress you speak of? Wei Yi blinked his eyes and asked in confusion. He didn't know any Nether Empress. "It's Leng Ruoxue," Mu Li said. Who could tell him what the Nether Empress was? Was there such a position in the divine realm? Wei Yi was very confused, and Mu Li was too lazy to explain to him. He stretched out his arm and put it on Wei Yi's shoulder. "Little Bun hit dog, let's go. I'll go arrange a place for you to stay." "Damn it. Can you stop calling me Little Bun?" Wei Yi was completely driven mad. He glared at Mu Li as if he wanted to swallow him. "Is Big Meat Bun okay?" Mu Li sighed helplessly. "You bastard. Damn it, damn it. Could he not live without the words Meat Bun?" Facing Wei Yi's gloominess, Xiao Fan and the others who had been following him were silent. However, their trembling shoulders revealed their happy mood. Seeing them like this, Wei Yi was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Glaring at Mu Li, Wei Yi turned around and entered the Leng family's main house. "Baozi, where are you going?" Mu Li quickly asked. "Aren't you going to arrange our accommodation?" Wei Yi gritted his teeth and decided to ignore the two words, "Bun hit dog." "I'm arranging a base for you, not a residence. You guys have to build your own houses," Mu Li explained. "Understood." Wei Yi nodded and then motioned for Mu Li to lead the way. After bullying Wei Yi, Mu Li was in a good mood. He happily brought Wei Yi to the edge of the Qilin clan's base. Right now, only the Qilin clan and a few new clans from Demon City were living there. Wei Yi and the others were arranged to live on the other side of the Qilin clan, becoming close neighbors with the Qilin clan. However, the depressed guardwing didn't know that his neighbor would be a Kirin. There was almost no need to build new houses for the guards. As artifact masters, what did they have the most? With various tools, their houses were soon erected on Demon City's land. Bun hit dog and the others are so efficient. Seeing this scene, Mu Li exclaimed in admiration. Could he not use the word waiting? As one of the waiting members, Xiao Fan expressed his opinion. Originally, only his boss was called Meat Bun. Now that the word waiting was added, they became the Meat Bun clan. And it was the Meat Bun clan that couldn't resist. Unfortunately, no one cared about what he thought. As the representative of Bun Hit Dog's family, they had been waiting for a long time. Do you have new neighbors? At this moment, a curious voice was heard. Then, a tall man walked out of the house next to theirs. The man had a friendly smile on his face and was nibbling on a carrot as thick as an arm. This image was so beautiful that people didn't dare to look at him directly. Yes, I am. You two have to get along well in the future. You're not allowed to bully Bun Hit Dog's family, Mu Li said with a serious face. I won tea. He wouldn't tea. I will take good care of Bun Hit Dog's family, the man promised with a smile. Bun Hit Dog's family. You can't get rid of it. Xiao Fan and the others were all worried. They had been waiting for someone just a moment ago, but now their family had completely changed. This was really too hurtful. On the contrary, Wei Yi was calmer. He extended his hand to the man in a friendly manner and introduced himself. Hello, I'm the Guardian Wing. Hello, meet Bun, I'm Huiyu, the Qilin clan leader. After taking a bite of the carrot, Huiyu also extended his hand courteously. Thanks. At first, Wei Yi had a lot of opinions about being called Meat Bun even though he had already introduced himself. However, when he heard the words, Qilin clan leader, at the end, he was instantly horrified. What? He didn't hear wrong. Qilin clan leader. Was it these few words? Turning around, Wei Yi couldn't care about anything else and directly pulled Xiao Fan over and asked softly, did this person just say that his name is Huiyu, the Qilin clan's patriarch? Why yes. Xiao Fan trembled as he replied. He really wanted to faint. Did you? How could the Qilin clan chief be here? Can't I live here happily? After confirming, Wei Yi's face turned pale and he was speechless. What's with the feeling of wanting to move? Seeing through Wei Yi's thoughts, Mu Li smiled and said, your strength. That's why I arranged for you guys to be beside the Qilin race in the hope that they can protect you. Calm down. You'll get used to it. What if I can't get used to it? Wei Yi looked at Mu Li pitifully. Kiss. I agree to you calling me Meat Bun, okay? Don't play me like this. Sob. I strongly request to move. Which normal person would dare to be neighbors with the Qilin race? He was scared to death. Slowly get used to it. You'll encounter anything here, you have to be strong. Seeing through Guard Wing's thoughts, Mu Li patted him on the shoulder and encouraged him. After saying this, he turned and left. Wei Yi and the others, who were left behind, stared at Fire Yu for a long time. Fire Yu's eyes were sore. In the end, he begged for mercy, stop staring, I can't keep staring at you, I admit defeat. You bastard. They weren't in the middle of a competition, alright? They were just nervous. He was nervous. Don't be afraid. Our Qilin clan doesn't eat humans. Sensing Wei Yi's unspoken words, Huiyu said honestly. In order not to give the new neighbor too much stimulation, he chose to go back to his room. Boss, what do we do now? Even though the Kirin said they don't eat people, I'm still scared. Xiao Fan said nervously after Huiyu left. What can we do? Cold mix. We've already boarded a pirate ship. Wei Yi wanted to cry but had no tears. Are we going to be a Meat Bun family for the rest of our lives? Xiao Fan was not willing to accept this. This nickname was really not nice. Those who didn't know would definitely know how much they loved meat buns. You think I want to? It's all because we're too weak that we're being despised. All of you had better work hard and start cultivating properly from today. When Wei Yi heard this, he was enraged. He was a reverent god. Reverent god level. He was actually despised. Was there any justice left in this world? However, it was undeniable that as a reverent god, his combat power was not strong. Who asked him to specialize in refining? Facing Len Ruoxue, who had extraordinary strength and knew how to refine pills and weapons, Wei Yi felt that he was too weak. A sense of melancholy welled up in his heart. How was he going to get out of this feeling of inferiority? After that, Wei Yi went back into his room, depressed. If Len Ruoxue didn't call him, he probably wouldn't step out of his room. At the same time, Len Ruoxue and the rest had already reached the edge of the valley that Mu Li had mentioned. When they reached the outer area, everyone sized up the environment. The valley in front of them was not large. There was only a mountain peak that was about tens of meters tall in the entire valley. And in the divine realm, this kind of mountain peak could only be considered a small mountain. The depressing thing was that this valley was very small, and the trees were not very lush. As a result, as long as they entered, they could be discovered by the enemy. Of course, the enemy had to be on that mountain. However, after Len Ruoxue and the others' observation, other than the mountain peak, there was basically no other suitable place to place the hostages. From this, they came to the conclusion that the target was obvious.